Behold Verdun, a prodigy of unparalleled intellect, now imprisoned within the magic tower, a fortress known by the name of Bohemian, it seems. He was ensnared by his tyrannical and utterly merciless tower master. Now he faces excruciating torment designed to end his life. What this malevolent master seeks to plunder from our hero is the one treasure he possesses above all others, his formidable mind, the vast knowledge he has painstakingly gathered. At this very moment, he is but an instrument for experimentation, a sacrificial lamb slowly approaching his demise in this cursed citadel. Verdun, at long last, grasps the grim reality of his exploitation. It is a consequence of his own pathetic weakness and lack of power. To comprehend how our hero fell into this abyss, a glimpse into his past is absolutely necessary. Let us rewind the threads of fate. His wretched existence began 15 years prior. He was raised within the cold walls of an orphanage, having no family to call his own, and the one singular, burning desire he harbored was to ascend as a truly magnificent mage. In the end, he joined a magic tower as a mere laborer, solely to learn the arcane arts. But despite his most strenuous efforts, the path to becoming a mage remained barred to him. What shackled his potential was a cruel fate known as the growth limit. It was the mage compatibility assessment he underwent at the tender age of 7. The results essentially decreed he could never become a true mage. For him, this verdict was nothing short of a death sentence. A cruel joke played on one whose lifelong ambition was to wield magic. Yet, even crushed by this destiny, he refused to abandon his dream. After all, the only thing he truly yearned for in this world was to become a fully fledged, respected archmage. So he clandestinely devoured the contents of spelled books left in the chambers, all while toiling as a menial servant within the magic tower. He also consumed every ounce of knowledge from the tomes he could find in the magic tower's great library. Though he was bereft of significant magical power, he possessed an unshakable confidence in his keen and exceptionally capable mind. His sheer intelligence was the flickering candle of hope that kept him moving forward. Several years passed, and through tireless determination, he finally ascended to the rank of researcher at the Magic Tower. While serving there, his theories and groundbreaking ideas were so brilliant that they left the entire academic body of the tower utterly astounded. It was at that moment he understood his intellect was not merely a random gift. His genius was a force that defied all conventional norms. He once unveiled his greatest masterpiece to a man named Lucid, the only fellow researcher with whom he shared a genuine bond. Tragically, Lucid would become the first soul, compelled to witness the boundless, terrifying potential our hero held within. It was no longer a wild fantasy to think he might rise from a humble servant to a venerated scholar of magic. But his ambition of becoming a grand scholar within the Magic Tower was shattered into a million pieces when Lucid betrayed him. That treacherous fiend stole Verdun's revolutionary thesis papers just one day before his scheduled presentation. He presented the stolen research under his own name to the tower's master, shamelessly claiming all the credit as his own. When Verdun desperately reported this theft to the tower master, the master was stunned into silence, realizing a man like Verdun was truly capable of creating the multidimensional continuity theory. This fiend was supposed to be the revered Bohemian Magic Tower Master, a figure known to all as Balrog Bezius. Verdun clung to the naive hope that the master would dispense justice. But little did he know, his extraordinary creation ignited a raging fire of avarice deep within the Tower Master, transforming him into a cruel tyrant. Now confined and subjected to endless torture, Verdun curses the day he didn't flee to live an ordinary, simple life. By day, he is exploited, forced into grueling manual labor. By night, these monsters perform agonizing experiments upon his body. He was once commanded to manifest a magic circle, one that would validate the theory within his stolen thesis. To execute this particular experiment, they injected unknown drugs into his veins to observe the volatile reactions. Their goal was to force him to create a new potion by refining it. And what did he receive in return? Only cold threats from the Tower Master to murder everyone he cherished. To him, his life was already forfeit, as he was utterly powerless before these beasts. As he lay broken, sweet, phantom-like memories from his past flashed before his eyes. His psyche is so fractured that he can barely recognize these fleeting moments. He has no idea what any of them even mean. These memories feature a young woman, Rovline, with whom he once swore an oath to become a legendary mage. If only his cursed potential for growth had been just a little higher, his fate would never have twisted into this nightmare. But now, he has no recourse but to resign himself to his impending death. Then a strange, An unsettling voice begins to haunt him after every session of torture. It is a chilling whisper, like a legion of ants speaking in his mind. This eerie voice seems to know that Verdun has not truly lost his will to survive, or at least that is what our hero believes. Deep within him, those whispering ants begin to accumulate, forming a mound built upon the foundations of vengeance and survival. The ants implore him to clench his teeth and to withstand the agony until the final breaking moment. Only then, it promises, will he experience a true rebirth. After that transformation, no one will ever possess the power to crush him again. He will seize immeasurable power and shatter the limits of his destiny. This mysterious entity finally reignites in Verdun a hope that his story is not yet over. He can channel the searing heat of resentment bubbling inside him and use it to forge the ultimate blade of revenge. And so, our hero begins his work. He will defy his very fate. He must complete a method for reconstructing his physical vessel, a technique the world has never before witnessed. By tomorrow's dawn, he is certain he will finally shatter his cursed limits. The long-sought-after theory of defying the heavens, the key that would allow him to remake his own body, was at last perfected. Now, all that is left is to unleash this forbidden theory into reality. He will make the attempt, no matter the cost. Even if this fragile, magic-starved body shatters in the attempt. If he succeeds, he will taste true freedom by tomorrow's light. The agonizingly long night finally passed, and the fateful day he would set his grand design in motion had dawned, adhering to their contemptible daily routine. Those vile scumbags arrived to assign him another menial task in the alchemy lab, a task like swabbing the floors. He is sternly commanded to scrub the bloodstains from his skin and bind his wounds before presenting himself for duty. The guard continues his tirade, spewing insults. All the while, our hero simply absorbs the venom and obeys, a perfect pawn. Later, he is found in the alchemy laboratory, meticulously cleaning the equipment. As he toils, his childhood friend, the very same Roveline, appears. He questions her, asking why she has come here. In her reply, she reminds him of her imminent departure. The memory finally clicks for Verdun. She is scheduled to journey abroad to advance her studies in the legendary magic city of Verant. This is a special honor, a privilege reserved only for the tower's most prodigious talents. He feels a genuine joy for her, hoping that destiny favors her path. She, in turn, gazes upon him with a look of deep concern. She once again extends her earnest invitation, pleading with him to accompany her to Verant. Unlike this cruel place, he would no longer endure the scorn of arrogant fools who belittle him. He might discover new pathways to knowledge within the magic city. As a side note, she warns him not to get any strange ideas. She is only inviting him for his own well-being, not because she harbors any special feelings for him. After a weighted, heavy moment of silence, our hero finally delivers his decision. A verdict that, sadly, comes as no surprise. The young woman's face falls, saddened by his choice. As he watches her silhouette fade through the bars of his prison window, he feels a sense of relief that she is ignorant of his torment, or what horrors he has been truly subjected to. Now that she has departed, she will be safe from the collateral destruction of the twisted, violent plans he has in store for this wretched magic tower. And speaking of the tower, the fast-approaching Magic Festival represents its most important day. It is one of the most celebrated holidays across the entire continent, a day to commemorate the building of the very first Magic Tower, and to honor the grand revival of the arcane arts. This is precisely why it is the most chaotic day of the year for the tower. Once the grand festival commences, all of the high-ranking archmages depart for the major cities. This leaves only the low-ranking, insignificant ones behind, presenting our hero with a perfect, golden opportunity to enact the absolutely insane stratagem he has been secretly forging. Right now, he is making his way to attend to the guardian of the treasure vault. After presenting the fiend with some tea, he calmly insists on entering the vault. He claims the tower master himself ordered him to cleanse the treasure vaults. Once that arrogant piece of filth grudgingly grants him passage, Verdun crosses the threshold and seals the heavy door behind him. He makes certain to activate a soundproofing artifact, ensuring no sound will escape. This is the moment where everything changes as he descends into the deeper levels. He lays his eyes upon the most priceless and intensely coveted artifact. It is said the tower masters squander a massive fortune to create this artificial marvel. It empowers a mage to perform what is known as triple cast. It can also temporarily awaken the dormant, latent talents of its wielder. This powerful staff is an indispensable component of his grand plan. To seize it, he must first neutralize the protective magic circle. It is a 7th tier spell, personally woven by the tower master himself. Verdun has poured his very soul into studying how to dismantle this spell. For the last 7 years, he now has the chance to shatter the one artifact that the tower master cherishes above all else. Meanwhile, in another part of the tower, Two buffoons are drinking and airing their grievances. They are deeply frustrated that while everyone else enjoys the festival, they're confined to guarding the tower's power source. But then again, they have no one to blame for their own foul luck. After all, they were the ones who drew the short straws. As they lament their miserable and rotten fortune, our hero pays a visit to these drunkards, only to be ordered to fetch more ale. As he turns to depart, one of the fools mutters about, awaiting the glorious day, he himself becomes the tower master. Then, he will no longer have to drink this cheap garbage. The other one seems far less certain. Seizing the master's throne isn't nearly as simple as his friend suggests, but it seems this particular bastard won't be alive to see that day, because our hero now holds the legendary staff firmly in his hands, and he viciously slices open that fool's throat. The very next instant, when the green-haired one spins around, towards the origin of the fatal blow that claimed his friend's life, he is utterly horrified to find Verdun standing there. Believing Verdun is just an insignificant runt overstepping his place, he resolves to teach him an unforgettable lesson. He unleashes a rank 3 spell known as Tidal Wave. In response, our hero brandishes the stolen staff and casts a spell of his own, a devastating technique called Earth Spear, which conjures giant stone lances, more than enough to overwhelm the fool and strike him down instantly. He struggles to comprehend how someone as lowly as Verdun, a being at the absolute bottom of the hierarchy with rank 1, could possibly even conjure magic in retaliation. Verdun shows no hesitation. He stands before the bastard like a veritable god of death. After executing the 2 guards, he uses their own fingerprints to gain access to the throbbing heart, the core known as the power source of the entire magic tower. It took him 7 long, agonizing years to arrive at this very moment. Now, drawing upon the boundless mana of the power source, he prepares to finally initiate the spell known as Defying Heavens. He is psychologically braced to face any consequence should he fail. No matter how dire the potential outcome might be, that is no excuse not to make the attempt. After inscribing a complex magic circle over himself and the power source, he at last unleashes the Defying Heavens incantation, the very spell that will allow him to completely reform his body. The ritual commences, and raw magic begins to pour out of the tower's heart. The raw magical energy from the power source is so cataclysmic, it can be witnessed from countless miles away. Whatever our hero is unleashing is of a truly massive scale. Of that, there is no doubt. Even the Tower Master, who is journeying to the city for the grand festival, can perceive the colossal pillar of energy from a great distance. The only thing capable of generating such a phenomenal output is the power source, which can only mean that an intruder has trespassed into his sacred tower and is siphoning all of its immense power for themselves. Within mere moments, the entire tower seems to disintegrate into dust. From beneath the mountain of rubble, our hero finally emerges. The very staff he holds in his hand crumbles away, turning to nothing but dust as well. Seeing the entire landscape wiped clean while he remains standing confirms that his grand design was an absolute success. Abruptly, he perceives something moving rapidly in the sky. It is the Tower Master, hurtling through the air using powerful magic circles, desperately trying to catch the perpetrator, the one who has annihilated his precious magic tower into nothingness. Spotting the lone figure standing amidst the utter carnage, the enraged Tower Master unleashes one of his most devastating spells. But our hero has already vanished. Utilizing teleportation magic, he leaves the furious bastard grinding his teeth in pure frustration. He is so utterly consumed with rage that he begins to exude a malevolent magic aura, causing the very stones around him to begin to levitate. Whether it was the Emperor himself or a mere child, he is hell-bent on slaughtering whoever is responsible for tearing down his monumental tower. Morning arrives, and the following scene reveals the serene, tranquil quiet of the mountains deep within a forest. Our hero awakens, completely bewildered about his current location. As he cleanses his face with frigid river water, he catches a startling glimpse of his own reflection. The sight shocks him. He realizes with a jolt that his appearance has been completely transformed. His earthy brown hair has become a spectral, ashen gray, and his once black pupils have shifted to a crystalline, piercing blue. He cannot be certain if he has become an entirely different individual, or if some unforeseen event occurred during his body's reconstruction. Looking back, he distinctly remembers eliminating the magic tower's lackeys before, achieving success with his Defying Heavens ritual. Before the Tower Master had a chance to retaliate, he made his escape using the teleportation magic. Now, he finds himself in a completely unfamiliar land. The flora surrounding him bears no resemblance to the vegetation near the Bohemian Magic Tower. This almost certainly means he teleported clear across half the continent. In other words, He successfully utilized defying heavens to completely reshape his body and escape justice using the prepared magic circle. A deep, hearty laugh escapes his lips, having finally seized the freedom he had so long been denied. He cannot help but let out a chuckle, imagining the Tower Master in absolute shambles at this moment, with his prized magic tower reduced to ruins. The Tower Master will have absolutely no clues as to who orchestrated this mess, nor will he ever suspect that his precious lab rat escaped, instead of perishing like a common mutt. As devastating a loss as this truly is, it is not nearly enough to uproot the magic tower from its foundations, though its manpower has been diminished. Verdun is certain the Tower Master has prepared countermeasures. After all, Balrog Bezius. The Tower Master was not called the Omnipotent One for no reason. That said, Verdun is quite satisfied with the destruction he has wrought for now, while the magic tower is forced to rebuild. He will accumulate strength and meticulously prepare his vengeance. His revenge will only be truly complete once he has utterly destroyed everything that Balrog has ever built. Most importantly, the name of Mage Verdun will be permanently etched into the annals of history if he succeeds. From this point forward, this saga revolves around Verdun's quest for absolute revenge, for respect, and for the renown he will command as a truly great mage. That is his one and only purpose from this day forward. For the time being, he puts the tower and his vengeance aside to focus on his own power. A short while later, he happens upon a grotesque green creature, desperately struggling to wrench a lodged axe from a wooden crate. Verdun dispatches this distracted creature with a single decisive blow. It appears he has not yet achieved any major breakthroughs in his magical abilities. His hair and eye coloration have changed, but his physical appearance remains largely the same. Even his total capacity for mana has not yet improved. He then shifts his focus to his immediate surroundings. Goblins are clearly abundant in this region. This must mean he is a significant distance from any major settlement. He then notices the distinctive skid marks left by a cart and a wooden crate that likely tumbled off when the cart fled in haste. Employing mana detection, he follows a faint trail of mana flowing down the path. The driver of the cart appears utterly terrified, as if he is being hunted. To get more context, the driver recounts how he encountered the last remnants of a bandit group, one that was supposedly eradicated just recently. He even attempted to negotiate by invoking the name of Baron Pyth, but it was to no avail. To compound his misfortune, the mercenaries he had hired to escort him cowardly abandoned him. But all of that trouble was nothing compared to the colossal orc that materialized with a truly sinister grin on its face. While the orc and its goblin horde feasted upon the bandits, the driver seized upon the chaos to make his escape. Thanks to those unfortunate bandits, he gained precious moments to flee for his life. Suddenly, he hears the sinister snarl of some creature closing in on him. He panics completely, whipping his horse to gallop even faster. It appears as though his luck has finally, tragically run out. His cart collides with a thick tree root, causing the entire vehicle to lose its balance and violently roll over. He desperately scrambles back to his feet, only to be met with a pack of bloodthirsty eyes staring directly back at him. The monsters emerge from the dark woods, their hunger for human flesh palpable. A monster lunges forward as the unfortunate man shuts his eyes, bracing himself for the absolute worst. But luck has not fully deserted him. He finds himself shielded by familiar earth magic, cast by our very own hero. Naturally, the mindless beasts redirect their attention to their next target, Verdun, standing coolly atop a newly formed stone monolith. I suppose this presents a perfect chance to test his newfound abilities, starting with these completely brainless monsters who are unknowingly charging directly to their own deaths. He unleashes a volley of multiple flaming arrows, instantly setting a great many of them ablaze and burning them down to a blackened crisp. The giant orc pack leader lets out an enraged roar and orders a second charge. As the subsequent wave of monsters rushes forward, Verdun attempts the art of dual cast for the very first time in his life. He fuses an electrified arrow spell together with his fire spell, a devastating dual cast combination known as Heat Wave Arrow. This relentless magical barrage culminates in a massive fiery blast, shaking the entire forest and leaving every last goblin burned to nothing but ash. Verdun himself is taken aback by the incredible result, especially considering that before his body's reconstruction, he would have been unable to kill a single goblin on his own. Now, it seems as though not a single one of them remains. Verdun then turns his focus back toward the carriage driver, who is still trapped inside the protective earthen dome. He is likely struggling to breathe with all of the oxygen being cut off. But as Verdun is momentarily preoccupied, that Orcish bastard still desperately clings to its life and attempts to sneak up on its unsuspecting prey. Although he was caught momentarily off guard, The orc is not nearly powerful enough to bring down our hero. A while later, the carriage has been remounted to the horses, and its owner, grinning like a child in a sweet shop, showers Verdun with an outpouring of gratitude. Because of Verdun's intervention, the man is still drawing breath, so he offers him a ride free of charge. Still, the grateful driver insists this is not nearly sufficient to repay such a great favor. Verdun simply tells him to keep his eyes on the path, or else he risks ending up flipping the carriage all over again. But the man simply will not cease his yapping, posing all manner of peculiar questions. In his cheerful and upbeat demeanor, he talks so much that he unwittingly tramples all over Verdun's last nerve. His mind is still reeling from that nerve-wracking encounter, specifically from that orc's treacherous, sneaky attack. After responding to one of the driver's many questions, Verdun inquires if thieves are a common sight in this particular region. Ordinarily, he understands that thieves tend to avoid areas where dangerous beasts are known to roam. The carriage owner reveals that this was his very first encounter with monsters. The forest, he goes on to explain, is under the dominion of a powerful figure named Baron Pyth. Since his childhood, the driver has maintained a good relationship with Baron Pyth, who had personally assured him that the thieves in the area had been dealt with. That is precisely why he traveled along his usual route, without hiring any prohibitively expensive mercenaries for protection. Verdun has now acquired a few critical clues. Initially, he feared that his teleportation might have gone awry, but if he is indeed within Baron Pyth's territory, then he has arrived at precisely the right location. Although he methodically erased all traces that could possibly lead his enemies to him, it is still quite possible the Bohemian Magic Tower suspects him as the one responsible for the destruction and could be actively searching. So, despite his radically changed appearance, he must conceal his true identity and focus on growing stronger. With this resolve solidifying in his mind, he introduces himself with a new name, Asher. The only time he will ever use the name Verdun again is in a final one-on-one showdown with the Magic Tower's master. Cut to the scene of Baron Pyth's grand estate within his territory. Baron Pyth and his retinue of servants look completely bewildered to see the carriage driver, Conrad, in such a disheveled and rough state. Ever the perpetually cheerful man, Conrad explains that his condition is the result of fleeing from orcs. No amount of apology from Baron Pyth could possibly undo the ordeal Conrad endured. Not only was he attacked by ruthless thieves, but he also faced a completely unforeseen encounter with ravenous orcs. Conrad reassures his old friend that he should not feel responsible. The Baron's attention then shifts toward the mysterious mage who likely saved Conrad. Upon seeing this savior, Baron Pyth graciously invites Asher inside to receive the hospitality he so clearly deserves. A while later, Asher finds himself garbed in fine new clothes, thanking Baron Pyth for the generous meal, for the shelter, and for a place to call home for the night. The Lord is more than happy to provide Asher with the very best he has to offer. Suddenly realizing that he has not yet introduced himself properly, the Baron formally presents himself as Baron Pytha Henrod, the undisputed ruler of these lands. A lavish spread of delicacies fills the table. The Baron is generous enough to offer a reward of 5 million elk to ensure that Asher is more than properly compensated. Then, the Baron puts forth a rather unusual request, although it may seem like a strange time to ask. He desperately wishes to hire Asher for a specific job, promising handsome compensation. Since Asher is in dire need of money to achieve his ultimate goals, he sees absolutely no reason to refuse the offer. Additionally, this will grant him a chance to hone his magic in real combat scenarios. He inquires about the specific nature of this proposed job. The Baron explains that just a few days prior, bodies were discovered hanging by their necks within the southern forest. A discreet, private investigation subsequently revealed that all of the victims were former residents of a nearby farm town, a town that is now in complete ruins. At first, they had suspected common bandits, but after a thorough search, not a single trace of any bandits could be located. It was as if some form of magic had completely erased all evidence. Hearing this, Asher suspects the bandits may have a mage among their ranks, though this is, for now, merely speculation. He asks when this proposed hunt will finally commence. The Baron informs him that it will begin in 4 days' time. For days pass by as swiftly as a gentle breeze. A senior knight introduces himself by the name of Enoch, the appointed commander of this entire operation. His direct subordinates include one named Harris, a man with black hair and a much younger pair. Meanwhile, Asher feels as though he has been utterly fooled, tricked into this bandit hunt by the cunning and resourceful Baron. He asks about a group of men standing silently in the background, questioning whether they are also part of this mission. It turns out that they are, in fact, adventurers. They have been drawn here by rumors of a strange orc that was recently spotted. The bounty for slaying this particular orc is so substantial that even formidable gold rank adventurers have arrived to claim. Apparently, gold rank adventurers are considered to be on par with ordinary knights. They are highly skilled veterans, trained in channeling energy to empower themselves, and their very weapons. Whispers say that these legendary veterans can slice through entire mountains. And here is the crucial piece of information to note. Since these powerful knights and adventurers still require Asher's assistance, something deeply suspicious must be unfolding here as they trek through the dense woods. Enoch insists that Asher inform them immediately if he detects a mage among the bandits. Typically, Tier 2 mages are a match for knights in terms of raw power, but their devastating long-range spells make it incredibly difficult to close the distance. The most ideal scenario would be if there are no mages involved at all, but Enoch's gravest fears are realized when they discover a magic circle up ahead. Asher employs a spell to effortlessly dispel the magical camouflage, revealing the giant, complex circle hidden beneath. Everyone present is completely and utterly astonished. The initial spell Asher neutralized was a simple camouflage enchantment. However, this massive circle serves as a warning signal to their allies. Asher commands everyone to retreat as he moves forward alone. He then takes down the warning circle in an instant. Enoch is left completely dumbfounded. After witnessing Asher annihilate the complex magic circle as if it were nothing. Now, it all begins to make sense why the Baron insisted on having Asher for this mission. Not to even mention, the knights are almost completely defenseless against any long-range magical attacks. On that particular note, let's briefly discuss the concept of explorers or adventurers. They are meant to be members of a larger guild, independently accepting commissions from all across the continent. Their primary function is to explore unknown or highly dangerous territories, and a crucial aspect of that job is monster extermination. The concept is quite simple, right? Of course, these individuals traverse a truly perilous path, constantly facing down life or death situations. But it is precisely because of that immense risk that they are admired by common folk all across the world. After all, if an adventurer possesses true skill, naturally, they will attain great wealth and fame as a result of their quests. At the same time, there are tragic occasions when adventurers, acting independently, have endured so much death and insane life experiences that the end result is for them to become completely unhinged individuals. These are the corrupted adventurers who have lost the very ability to control their emotions. And because they are consumed by an insatiable desire to spill blood, they eventually turn their murderous focus towards humans. These fallen people are known as the bandits of this world. Speaking of bandits, two of them are out here at this moment, deeply annoyed that they've suffered losses from Baron Pyth's raid party. Not to mention the fact that they are now forced to contend with monsters, like orcs and goblins. They're also critically low on food supplies, making this a troublesome battle for their very sustenance. The leader roars furiously at his men for just sitting around looking pretty and commands them to go and hunt down animals for food. Let's return our focus back to our heroic group, who are secretly observing the scene of the bandits as it unfolds. The knights are patiently awaiting Commander Enoch's direct orders, as he is the most seasoned and experienced warrior among the bunch. Enoch readies his blade for battle, believing that this is the most opportune moment for them to strike, especially now that their leader has dispatched his men to go hunting. However, our boy Asher urges them to reconsider their objective, while he is only supposed to function as an insurance policy against the enemy's mage. Verdun believes that it would be incredibly reckless for them to charge in blindly, when they have no real idea of what their adversaries are capable of. After all, if the enemy mage does in fact possess a magic circle that surpasses Verdun's, all of their efforts will be rendered completely futile, though his concerns are valid. Commander Enoch is worried that the bandits will begin to mobilize very soon, so they absolutely must take action now. To that, Verdun reveals that there may be a single, viable solution to their problems, returning our attention to the bandit leader. He is frustrated that their efforts of exploration have just resulted in a complete and utter waste. Not to mention the unfortunate fact that he lost one of his newest recruits. His mage companion thinks that Varia is whining just a bit too much and argues that they should instead focus their efforts on finding a solution. After all, not a single one of them could have possibly predicted that a monstrous orc would suddenly pop out of thin air to kill some of their men. The bandit is completely astonished by the experience because it is so unusual, even for a seasoned explorer. The sole reason he ended up embroiled in this shady business is because he murdered one of his own teammates. For the sake of money, Varia recommends to his mage friend, Vilshin, that they should instead launch an attack on another nearby village. But clearly, he has not thought this plan through at all, as the Baron is already enraged by their heinous display of corpses. The last time, then there is the inconvenient fact that they have been covering their tracks, thanks to the wondrous power of concealment magic. But they cannot simply remain stuck in one location forever, and they desperately need to get on the move to somewhere else. The mage recommends a nearby city that is called Martez, which is not all that far away from this particular forest. Just as they're discussing their plans of annihilating the village that is located close to the city, a powerful beam of light grazes past them and detonates. Upon making contact with the surrounding land, the enemy mage was successfully able to conjure a protective barrier, preventing them from taking any immediate damage. An unexpected explosion out of the blue was certainly not on their bingo cards. Vilshin grimly reveals that they have now been discovered, and that this is, without a doubt, an ambush. Speaking of which, the two knights serving under Commander Enoch's command have already initiated their assault. Their powerful combined attacks easily overwhelm Vilshin's defensive magical barrier, knocking them forcefully out of it. The enemy mage is struck by a heavy blow, causing his friend Varia to worry deeply for his current condition. The good thing about a mana barrier is that, as a defensive tactic, it can be cast with relative ease. The bad thing, however, is that it can also be shattered just as quickly. Immediately after a barrier has been shattered, the physical toll on the caster is immense. The one who is sharing this particular piece of knowledge is none other than our boy, who completely stuns them with his very presence as a fellow mage. Thanks to Verdon's ingenious battle plan, they now understand that it will be quite simple to dismantle the enemy mage, along with all of their other enemies. Commander Enoch is now hoping for their allied mage to go completely all out, while Varia finds himself on the defensive back foot, realizing at last that the Baron is so incredibly enraged that he is clearly in no mood to spare any of their lives. The very fact that he went so far as to hire a powerful mage speaks volumes, but the stubborn bandit refuses to simply cave in and surrender to defeat. He swiftly rushes in to launch a desperate attack. Commander Enoch's powerful blade clashes directly against Varia's, who chillingly declares that he will slaughter every single one of them and personally return their heads back to the Baron. The Gigachad commander takes this as nothing more than a cute little insult, and even encourages his opponent to try his absolute best to achieve such a lofty and ambitious goal. While they are engaged in their sword battle, Verdon is currently busy chasing down the fleeing enemy mage, who is prioritizing his own escape above all else. His grand plans of escaping are foiled because our boy is hot on his pursuit. Vilshin finds it incredibly convenient that the annoying mage confronting him is spam, the defensive ability known as Earthwall. He knows that only powerful third circle mages possess the ability to use flight. He makes a fatal assumption, believing Verdon to be nothing but a second circle novice. This arrogant miscalculation emboldens the fool to unleash a multi-pronged barrage of crystalline ice arrows against his opponent, convinced he can overwhelm him in a direct magical confrontation. The deadly shards of ice advance with blinding speed toward our hero, while Vilshin smugly believes that eliminating a foe like this will be an effortless victory, or so he tragically thought, because Verdon, with chilling composure, summons a perfect counter to his spell, the multi-flame arrow incantation. A cataclysmic collision of fire and ice erupts between them, annihilating each other in a spectacular, explosive stalemate. When the blinding light of the attack finally fades, we witness a colossal crater gouged into the earth, a permanent scar. Vilshin is, to say the least, impressed that this supposed second circle mage is actually matching him blow for blow. Yet at the very same time, he pities Verdon for his foolishness in choosing his opponents so unwisely. This would have been a much smoother battle for our hero if he had faced Vilshin with the might of the knights by his side. But from the arrogant look of things, even while grievously injured, Vilshin remains utterly confident in his power to crush our boy. Verdon, on the other hand, emerges from the billowing smoke with supreme confidence, coldly stating that he never had any intention of letting him escape. The enemy mage, surprisingly, commends the young man for being able to wield such complex, elemental, attribute magic. He believes Verdon is a rare gem of talent, a truly extraordinary magician. However, Vilshin is no longer in the mood for childish games. He sneers that Verdon has made a grave and fatal mistake, and likely never anticipated being completely annihilated by his opponent. With that proclamation, the fiend unleashes third circle ice magic called the Falling Glacier. To be clear, Imagine a damned mountain of ice falling from the sky upon you, because that is exactly what this terrifying spell entails. The fool is absolutely certain that our hero cannot possibly survive this. The oversized ice cube makes devastating contact with Verdun's position, but for some impossible reason, nothing happens. Vilshin is left completely starstruck, unable to comprehend what just occurred. From the looks of it, his opponent has somehow completely negated his spell. It's thanks to Verdun erecting dozens of powerful earthen spears, preventing the glacier from ever making contact with him or the ground below. Our boy is chilling there without a single problem, invoking the spell's name and clenching his fist with authority. The mage is able to shatter the entire block of ice without any trouble. The mere demonstration of this spell, this earth spear, leaves the blue-haired boy utterly shocked. He cannot fathom how a supposed second circle magician is capable of tapping into forbidden spells far beyond his station. To that, Verdun decides to enlighten him a little on his true power, gathering frigid ice into the palm of his hand. He stuns Vilshin by revealing his mastery over 4 different attributes. A merciless, jagged spike of ice brutally impales Vilshin's body, and in his final, horrifying realization, with the enemy mage finally dispatched, Verdun appears completely unfazed, believing that it was a very good thing for him to have joined this quest. Speaking of fighting, do you remember the maniacal, terrifying orc that the bandits were speaking of a while ago? Yeah, that villainous fiend is actually feasting upon human flesh and wearing the necklaces of fallen explorers as trophies. And something tells me he craves even more. Let's rewind the clock 2 days into the past. Verdun is a man who likes to be prepared. And so, before departing on the quest to hunt down the bandits, he concocted a special medicine. Thanks to the rare ingredients he plundered from the magic tower. In his own words, he calls it the magic circuit dilator. When you reflect on the horrific life he led as a human test subject for the tower's cruel experiments, you might be thinking that he would want to be nowhere near that life ever again. However, specifically for this medicine, he willingly injected it directly into his own body. The result was pure, unadulterated agony. Verdun was screaming. He was howling. He roared in absolute pain, but it is only thanks to this hasty self-experimentation that he was able to forcefully ascend into the ranks of third-tier magic. Returning to the present moment, we see him finally concluding that his foe, Vilshin, is dead, as if he didn't just impale the man with a colossal spike of ice. But this is the only path for him to gain valuable accomplishments in the eyes of the other explorers, which will ultimately help him gain the Baron's trust in the long run. Noticing the enchanted wand in the dead Vilshin's hand, our boy decides to pick up the gleaming, shiny object and inspects the item carefully with his appraisal spell. Critical information about the wand reveals that it is in fact a specially modified stone wand, one which decreases the overall casting ability, but greatly increases the efficiency of all ice magic. From the powerful buffs that are mentioned here, Verdun thinks that it will be quite useful for him to keep this. Parrot comes rushing over to find their new allied mage, explaining that they were becoming worried about him after having taken care of the other bandits. Verdun apologizes for having taken so long and shares the circumstances of Vilshin's considerable powers, which resulted in a more lengthy, drawn-out battle. Perrick understands his concern without question, because he can tell from the massive craters left on the battlefield that it was an incredibly intense fight. The most surprising part to Verdun is how the knights so easily took care of and dismantled the bandits. In a short time, he was busy fighting just one mage. Perrick happily expresses that the only problem remaining is their leader, Varia, who Commander Enoch is still busy fighting, but he believes that fight should be concluded by the time they arrive back. While collecting the corpse of the fallen mage, Perrick turns back to answer a curious question posed by our boy. Verdun is concerned that he might be stealing something from the bandits without having proper permission, but to that, Perrick freely explains that they are permitted to keep anything of value they find, as long as it is irrelevant to the primary mission. He can keep anything. This is fantastic news to our magician, who is genuinely grateful for Baron PYKH's immense kindness. Thankfully, he can now wield this powerful wand without worrying about getting into any trouble. After regrouping with the remainder of the team, he is personally commended by Commander Enoch for his valiant efforts in ensuring the ultimate success of their mission. Our mage argues that it is actually he who has found this to be a valuable learning opportunity. As for the captured Varia, the man's face looks as if he has seen a ghost. He simply cannot believe that his trusted friend was killed in battle, especially considering he was such a competent and powerful mage. The detained bandit knows that if the Baron ever lays eyes on them, he will undoubtedly order their immediate public execution. This means that death is the only possible outcome left for them. He refuses to die in such a shitty place, as he has ambitions left to pursue. Varia covertly works to untie his bindings and realizes his only ticket out of this hell is is to make a desperate escape. Suddenly, Enoch and Verdun hear the horrified screams of their man as they're being butchered by the now enraged and desperate bandit. Varia is absolutely livid and has set his sights on killing the head knight, believing that it is the only way for him to guarantee a safe escape without the benefit of Vilshan's magical protection. His entire plan is to steal a horse and make an immediate retreat. And so, Varia's blade clashes once more against the commander's. The psychopathic cornered bandit attempts to drive his blade directly into his opponent's face, but the experienced commander expertly grabs his striking hand before using his other powerful arm to seize Varia's collar. Before the fiend is even able to comprehend what has happened, the bandit is violently slammed into the hard ground, unable to believe that a knight would throw away his own weapon just to execute a powerful grappling maneuver with the very wind knocked out of him. The bandit can do nothing more than be swiftly detained by the guards. He roars furiously at Enoch for having no pride as a noble knight. In response, the commander simply lets out a laugh, questioning what he could possibly mean by that. After all, pride is a luxury to be enjoyed only by the living. With that chilling statement, he aims his blade directly for the bandit's head before driving it deep into his skull. A single sharp stab, and Varia is finally dead. His blood-drenched corpse is unceremoniously dragged away to be disposed of. While Enoch apologizes for showing our boy such a gruesome, bloody scene, the knight claims he didn't truly want to stab him in such a manner, but ultimately felt that he was left with very little choice. Instead of feeling even slightly terrified, Verdun simply commends the powerful knight for his decisive ability, but he also doesn't understand why the rest of the bandits are only being restrained and have not yet been killed. The commander shares that. It is because they recently learned about some of the bandits, sharing a connection from a recent nearby attack. They believe that these particular men must have been held hostage, which is why they intend to bring them back for a thorough interrogation, to properly and justly decide their ultimate fate. With their bloody job finally finished, the knights direct their guards to return to the castle with the bodies of all the fallen bandits. One of the guards is busy dealing with one of them, when a second, terrified bandit bolts away to save his own life. One of the knights immediately decides to give chase after the man, until he is suddenly stopped by Verdun, who suspects that something about this entire situation just doesn't feel right to him at all. Right as the fleeing bandit disappeared into the dense forest, they all heard his blood-curdling cries, pleading and begging for help. The situation grows even more complicated when a foul, coppery stench of blood coats their surroundings. Clearly, there is yet another, unseen enemy they have not dealt with. A high-speed projectile aimed directly at one of the knights is quickly deflected by the flat of his sword. It bounces away violently, leaving a trail of blood with every impact. And that projectile is horrifically revealed to be the bandit's own severed head. Now, that is a truly bone-chilling encounter right there. From the dark of the forest emerges a massive shadow that completely dwarfs the entire group in its size. Some of them cannot even begin to comprehend that an orc of this colossal size is real. Verdun, while clearly troubled, coolly argues that the only possible outcome is that none of the previous explorers were capable of defeating such a powerful creature. For the grand reveal, we see the muscular, hulking behemoth, rearing a giant, wicked blade and staring its prey down menacingly. Its sheer impossible size makes the entire group wonder if they can even classify a monster like this as a common orc. To make matters even more terrifying, there's not just one of these fiends, but at least a few dozen more from the looks of it. However, one terrifying thing is for absolute certain. Verdun knows that this nightmarish, red-skinned creature must be the leader of the entire group. It bears a striking resemblance to the very orc that he saw before. These particular orcs characteristically share a malevolent, evil smile because of their protruding, long teeth from the sides of their mouths. Then there's the unavoidable fact that this red one is even more massive than the normal orcs. The only logical explanation is that this creature is an evolved, superior beast among the rest. Their desperate fight for survival ignites when the Red Orc commands its teeming minions to charge towards the humans. As a swift countermeasure, the leader of the Knights quickly readies his group into a solid defensive formation. They intend to focus on the weaker minions first, and then take care of the monstrous boss afterwards. But before Enoch can even fully prepare himself, the monstrous orc powerfully swings its massive blade with such incredible might that it sends the Knight flying from the sheer, raw impact. Now reduced to a critically vulnerable position, the Knight faces his impending doom as the red orc advances to crush him beneath its heavy foot. But it is then that the other two knights heroically chime in, viciously slashing at the creature's foot to the point that it is forcefully driven back. While it is still staggered and momentarily weakened, Sir Enoch unleashes his full fury upon the creature's massive chest, deeply stabbing its tough skin and then slashing all the way down for an even more agonizingly painful attack. The colossal monster finally collapses to the ground. You might be foolishly thinking that this is the end, that the brutal fight is finally over. But then, this thing starts to laugh, even in its near-death, critical condition. What it does next is grab one of its own goblins and literally bite it in half, leaving the knights completely and utterly horrified by the kind of unholy creature they're now facing. With the goblin fully devoured and its life energy completely consumed, the red orc switches its battle stance with psychotic glee, preparing to finally take them all down. Enoch's main group is completely baffled by the fact that this creature possesses some kind of self-healing properties, which means they're going to have a much tougher time dealing with this boss. The horrific, guttural screams of the creature fill the entire atmosphere. As Commander Enoch prepares everyone in his group to continue the fight, the monster begins round 2 by heaving away its sharp, heavy weapon as a terrifyingly heavy projectile. This weapon literally closes the distance to one of the knights with such blinding speed that he is barely able to block at the very last possible second. This begs the question, how in the world did an orc gain the intelligence to throw its weapon so precisely? To make matters even more terrifying for them, the sheer force of the blade is so overwhelming that it shatters the knight's very sword into tiny pieces. The chipped, razor-sharp pieces of the sword scar his face. And once again, you guys might be thinking this is as far as it can possibly go. But no, the giant weapon literally shears off a piece of Harris's own body, distracting the nearby Pyth, to the point that he cannot focus on his side of the brutal battle. The amateur knight didn't even sense the orc lunge so incredibly fast towards him. Still, as best as he possibly can, Pyth uses his entire strength to desperately swing his weapon, hoping to sever the creature's massive hand. Or so he thought, because as astonishing as it may sound, the blade could not even begin to tear apart the orc's tough flesh. Pyth is now in grave jeopardy, as the creature casually uses its other massive hand to try and squash him. The tiny, insignificant human. But thankfully, our boy pulled up with another powerful earth spell to combat the orc and keep it occupied for just a little while. He then calls for Pyth to retreat to safety, which the terrified knight quickly does by dashing back, though he may have narrowly survived. The next logical question is, how in the hell do they actually beat this thing? Pyth is at a complete loss because he doesn't even have a sword to fight with, based on what just transpired. Verdun analyzes that the red orc likely gained a recovery speed buff immediately after ingesting one of its own goblin minions. The resulting buff is so powerful that even Pyth's full-strength effort to cut off its arm proved to be completely meaningless. It is the very first time they have ever encountered an orc of this insane level, making them seriously question if this creature is some kind of mythological being that is simply far out of their league. However, our mage counters that it is nothing of the sort, despite its absolutely freakish strength. Reflecting upon the creature's consumption and regeneration ability, Verdun correctly assesses its true strength, noticing how it also holds a powerful influence over the smaller monsters of its same kind. Then on top of all that, it even possesses the sheer physical force to combat experienced knights from every possible situation imaginable. This orc is certainly not your average foe. He is literally the Darth Vader of their entire group. However, even from this grim perspective, Verdun strongly believes that calling it a special entity would be a gross overstatement of its power. Let's talk about the inherent limitations of normal magic for just a second. You see, the more raw mana that is imbued into any given spell, it still cannot possibly reach beyond a certain predetermined threshold. Beyond a certain fixed point, the magic spell is simply destroyed. That is the fundamental rule of balance for all of magic. However, among all of these various spells, there exists one that has absolutely no limitations to that very same rule. Activating the spell of geographic manipulation, Verdun shifts the very magic circle in his grasp, unleashing a powerful earthquake as the literal terrain is violently altered. The guards are completely horrified, thinking that yet another terrible disaster has struck down upon them. They were just in the middle of facing an opponent that was way out of their league, and now they find themselves facing an actual earthquake. Luckily, Enoch becomes the much-needed voice of reason for his men, declaring that it is a spell from their own allied mage, who is desperately trying to protect them all. Though his calming words echoed throughout the entire battlefield, even the great commander of the knights knew that remaining perfectly calm in this position would be damn near impossible for anyone. The reason he said that is because our boy had literally erected the very land upon which they stood, up into the air, destroying the entire arena and plunging every last one of the orc's forces below. The red orc growls in utter confusion, spotting the powerful mage far above him, who now has an incredibly potent fireball spell active in his hand, invoking powerful third-tier magic once again. Verdun releases the scorching fireball, grilling all of the monsters alive below him. The resulting sight is one of immense hope and victory for the humans. Pyth is celebrating loudly, seeing the monsters get humiliated in such a decisive way. It is incredibly satisfying to witness such a dramatic turn in the battle. While this is all happening, the mage quietly internalizes how his geography manipulation spell is completely devoid of any known limit. At the very same time, none of the other mages ever bother using this spell as their primary form of magic. The reason for this is tied to the fact that the spell consumes an absolutely enormous amount of mana for its casting, making its overall utility completely worthless in comparison. Unfortunately, this same critical issue is something that even our powerful boy struggles with. He laments the fact that he does not have enough raw mana to initiate a power beyond the scope of third-tier magic. Even this current, powerful version of the spell is quite underwhelming to him. Suddenly, a haunting, bestial growl captures the group's undivided attention. They are seriously shocked that the behemoth is not only still alive, but it is actively chomping down on its own remaining foot soldiers to continuously heal itself and grow even stronger. Pyth is now scared shitless and hides directly behind our mage, while Verdun decides to try a completely different approach than simply using his fire magic, invoking the power of water magic. He releases a powerful spell called Wave. The immense, heavy weight of the wave staggers the giant monster. This allows Verdun the critical opportunity to cast a powerful secondary attack, one that involves a great deal of risk since he has dismounted from his safe spot. He actually uses the multi-ice arrows spell in conjunction with the powerful wind gust spell, heavily amplifying the power of the original spell. This time, Verdun fully intends to freeze the bastard solid. The dual casting ability, formed through the combination of the two spells, is called Bitter Cold Arrows, and it streams down massive chunks of icy spikes, freezing the remaining minions of the red orc firmly into place. But the reign of terror of the red orc does not end there. This fiend simply does not want to die, as he somehow survives the intense freezing attack and aims to crush the insolent mage with its massive hand. Verdun just barely manages to evade the heavy, crushing slam, reflecting that despite the creature's commendable regeneration factor, there is surely a limit to what it can do while it is almost fully frozen. Popping up suddenly from its blind spot, Verdun releases yet another powerful ice spell called the Frozen Orb. Now, this particular attack definitively ended the brutal battle, resulting in a massive ice statue of the terrifying Red Orc, and cementing the victory of our extremely clever mage. I just find it so impressive that they were not able to kill this guy easily. This monster is genuinely a true freak of nature, and one of my personal favorites in recent stories. Anyway, back in the magic city of Arant, we come to find that the local people are discussing the shocking news of the Bohemian Magic Tower being temporarily closed. There are wild rumors circulating that the tower's main energy source exploded, but not everyone is quick to believe that. The most interesting detail is how many of its mages simply vanished, and how the tower ceased functioning in its entirety. Then, there is the perplexing fact that the explosion and the damages it caused were so absolutely massive that it is hard to believe that the energy source is the only thing that played a part in the destruction. Some members of the public believe that perhaps it was a divine punishment sent from the heavens, or maybe something meticulously planned by a traitor from within. When the old man throws out a wild suspicion that maybe the Bohemian Magic Tower was bugged or somehow sealed, his words catch a certain mage's attention nearby. The old man is still going on, muttering about how it would be impossible for the magic tower to have just sealed itself. He shares his wild theory about secret experiments being conducted deep inside the tower, and that it was annihilated because of that fact. The mustached man ends up getting his coffee spilled on him from the aggressive way the mage grabs him, fiercely ordering him to repeat what he just said. He is out here looking completely confused until the familiar mage dramatically unveils her cloak, revealing herself to be none other than Rovlin, who is absolutely furious upon hearing what happened to her magic tower. In the very next scene, grand celebrations are now underway for the successful and complete subjugation of the bandits. The victorious heroes have triumphantly returned to the Pyth territory. Baron Pyth was so deeply impressed by the news that he threw a lavish banquet in joyous celebration. The absolute best part is that there was not a single major casualty from a squad side. At first, our heroic boy is nowhere to be found, but then he suddenly pops up with all of his drip points completely maxed out. He may be fashionably late, but remember folks, truly good things always take their sweet time. Verdun's late arrival doesn't seem to matter, because the happily drunk Baron is so elated that he simply doesn't care. Our boy is incredibly thankful for the warm pleasantries, and shares that. He was certainly not expecting even the absolute lowest-ranking soldiers to be invited to the grand banquet. To that, the Baron insists that one's social status doesn't matter when a man bravely defends his lord's territory. I honestly have to say, that is one of the most refreshing things I have heard in a story. The Baron then curiously asks about the overall situation of the bandits, although they were tasked with a simple subjugation mission. Even Baron Pyth now understands that. Verdun and his heroic group faced tremendously powerful enemies during that perilous mission. Our mage confirms this grim fact, agreeing that they were certainly not your typical run-of-the-mill bandits. With the kind of formidable skill these men possessed, Verdun strongly believes that they could have very easily lived a comfortable and peaceful life if only they had chosen a different path. And although he doesn't explicitly mention it here, it does make perfect sense, considering that these very bandits were once fighting for the good guys at some distant point in their past. Back to the story, the Baron now expresses that he actually ordered a full investigation into the criminals. According to that detailed report, these bandits were indeed wanted criminals. Previously, they boasted a life as prestigious gold rank adventurers, explaining exactly how incredibly powerful they truly are. But unfortunately, a couple of years ago, one of them made the fateful decision to murder a teammate on a mission, and in a desperate attempt to escape the consequences of his actions, he fled the scene of the crime shortly afterwards. It soon became impossible for anyone to follow them and track them down. But now, it is abundantly clear that they formed a bandit group together, and eventually ended up hiding in Baron Pyth's territory until they were finally and decisively taken care of. Verdun reflects on the profound importance of a gold rank adventurer. You see, the gold rank is actually the fourth highest achievable rank among all adventurers, obtainable only after successfully completing an absurd number of difficult missions. With that critical information in mind, it no longer appears so unrealistic. Why? These particular fiends had an enormous bounty of 10 million elk on their heads. Apart from all of that, our boy now fully understands why the Baron looks so incredibly satisfied. It is actually because of Verdun's direct intervention in the mission that they were able to successfully complete the subjugation and get rid of all the bandits without any serious, life-threatening casualties. Without his help, things would have surely ended a lot worse. The most amusing thing is how the Baron is now looking at Verdun like some kind of princess in love. His happiness is completely off the charts. He then emphasizes that the admirable, powerful mage didn't just defeat the incredibly powerful bandits, but also single-handedly took care of the monstrous demi-humans for them. It is because of Verdun's truly valiant efforts that even the powerful Adventurers Guild has acknowledged him and has sent their personal regards. Long story short, our boy has become a local celebrity in a very short amount of time. The most hilarious part is that he was only doing what he was tasked to do. So maybe the Baron really is far too drunk to be thinking clearly right now. The man himself actually goes on to admit this very fact, and then proceeds to address Verdun with a newfound seriousness. First, he sincerely thanks the mage for the invaluable services he rendered, which directly secured the safety of the defenseless and innocent villagers. It is because of that they were able to give proper and dignified funerals to the victims of the bandits. The knights, as well as their esteemed master, are all completely in awe of him, and they all raise their drinks to commend the great and powerful mage, Asura, the true hero who saved the entire Pyth territory. The entire banquet hall shares this very same heartfelt sentiment, recalling the triumphant end of the banquet. Verdun remembers that it ended quite differently from the harsh way he was treated back in the cold magic tower. This particular banquet did not care for one's social status. Instead, it allowed for a welcoming space where everyone could celebrate as equals. Sometimes in life, it is not always just about us. It is also about the people around us who contribute to our own happiness. Verdun truly shares this feeling, being treated so differently from the distant and cruel atmosphere of the lonely magic tower. Instead, this place was genuinely warm. Something that welcomed him with open arms and showed him his true place. Ever since he finally escaped that nightmarish, hellish tower, it was the first time ever that our powerful mage was able to laugh with all of his heart. What a genuinely warm and heartfelt moment. But of course, it is certainly not a happy ending just yet. Because while all of this was happening, absolutely no one could have ever predicted the incoming and catastrophic collapse of the Bohemian Magic Tower. Let's now go to that side of the sprawling story for a minute. Rovlin has finally returned to the great Magic Tower, completely astonished to find that it is somehow still in one piece. And yes, I know you guys have all missed it, The One Piece is absolutely real. Anyway, she is currently beaming with pure happiness because the tower still being intact completely disproves all the wild rumors flying around. A nearby man asks her about her sudden and unexpected return from Varan. She shares her grave concerns after having received the dreadful news of the tower's supposed destruction and how the resulting disruption had devastated the entire landscape. But apparently, nothing like that is even remotely the case. Now that she has confirmed it with her own 2 eyes, all of this pent-up excitement makes her desperately want to meet Verdun, the one single person she truly cares about in this entire tower. But upon hearing his familiar name, the man solemnly points her in a direction where a crowd is gathered. In front of them is a missing persons list. And on that list, Verdun's name is tragically included. Rovlin's entire world shatters upon this horrible realization when she sees all of these people listed as missing. Most importantly, Verdun, someone who was simply working on duty until he was exposed to the magical energy. Many now presume him to be long dead. It is kind of like a situation where a devastating nuclear bomb has gone off. His body is officially listed as being unrecoverable. Anyway, Rovlin's body is shuddering in complete turmoil, and she has a list of questions. In a quick flash, she remembers her past conversations with him, all muddy in the background because of his fateful decision to remain in the tower. It just seems so unfair to her that they were never, ever going to meet again. It is completely unacceptable for things to have ended the way that they did. This despairing feeling quickly turns into raw physical and emotional agony, causing her to weep uncontrollably for her dear friend's demise. The poor woman goes absolutely batshit crazy, completely unable to accept that this is the way things are going to end. Funnily enough, she actually family zones him during this impassioned speech. I guess it is just going to be like Eren and Mikasa. But yeah, her raw outrage is completely uncontrollable as she erupts in fierce denial before she is able to unleash any real destruction. Sir Valdek arrives to try and console her. He advises the distraught young woman that there is absolutely no point in getting angry at the others. He finds her in a truly miserable state as Rovlin is shrinking in utter defeat, questioning what the hell actually happened here at the tower. First, he comforts her. Then, he calmly explains the whole situation. He talks about how the immense power source went completely berserk, conveniently at the exact time when all of the high-ranking mages were away to attend a magic festival, with a powerful source bursting into pure destruction. Every single person who was assigned to protect the power source was completely decimated. But precious lives are not the only thing they have tragically lost. Years of incredibly important research gone in a mere blink of an eye, as all of the records simply vanished. And not just that, the Sacred Treasure Vault was also damaged to a considerable extent. It represents a total and catastrophic loss, as everything that was inside the vault, containing rare spell books and important magical artifacts, all of that is now no more as well. Sir Valdek is enormously and visibly frustrated. After everything, he feels most pissed off about what he considers to be the greatest loss of all, which is the loss of his prized experimental test subject. Of course, he doesn't dare tell a single word of this information to Rovlin, but in his internal reflection, he pities being unable to recover Verdun's precious brain, so they could have at least contained some of the devastating damage. Damn, this crazy, sadistic guy was planning to create another Einstein situation by extracting his very brain. Anyway, Sir Valdek is of the strong opinion that they can exact swift vengeance for whatever happened. After all, they have a small but significant clue about the culprit, who caused a massive power surge in the first place. Hearing this, Rovlin turns back to inquire for more information. He tells her that just 3 short hours before the surge occurred, a single person vanished completely without a single trace. Thanks to Valdek's extensive personal connections, he was somehow able to track this mysterious person down until he finally found something worth his while. A strange pendant, one that looks suspiciously like the Millennium Puzzle from Yu-Gi-Oh! If you were to ask me, Rovlin simply cannot believe her own eyes. This necklace is the unmistakable symbol of the Black Hour, the shadowy dark organization that excels in forbidden magic and also secretly intends to conquer the entire world with its immense powers. But it just does not make any logical sense. What are they trying to achieve from the Magic Tower, anyway? Valdek now strongly suspects that they are somehow involved, even though he doesn't yet know how. The shadowy Black Hour group managed to invade their sacred tower and cause all of these catastrophic disruptions to avenge his many fallen comrades. Valdek plans to send a powerful extermination squad to completely and utterly annihilate the Black Order, and because they will need all the possible help they can get, he wants to officially recruit her for this dangerous job. And because of what has happened here today, Valdek is utterly convinced that she is now ready to join, as the Scarlet Mage is now seething with uncontrollable anger. Damned be anyone who dares to stand in her way of avenging Verdun's death. What a truly dramatic scene. Now, let's fast forward a few days ahead into the future and see what is currently going on back in the Pyth territory. Here at the local Adventurers Guild, Verdun is quietly and peacefully enjoying his cup of tea. For the entire catastrophic incident involving the orcs, he admits that even after dispatching their own gold rank adventurers, they soon realized they were completely powerless to handle the terrifying threat. Our hero remains unbothered by this, offering no major complaints. As compensation for his triumphant subjugation mission, he is presented with a notice. The mage's eyes devour every single word. He discovers they are paying him an extra sum for the massive bounty that was placed on the new, mutated orc's head, the very same beast that seemed utterly impossible to kill. Thanks to that, the total amount of his reward now stands at a jaw-dropping 24 million elk. But then comes the one enemy no hero can defeat. Taxes, a detail most sagas conveniently forget. His colossal fortune is immediately cut in half, so he is set to receive a handsome 12 million elk to his name. The guild's representative reminds him of the steep taxation fee, a policy which punishes all those who are not officially registered with the guild. This implies that he could have easily avoided these heavy taxes had he been an official member of their esteemed guild. Regrettably, this particular fee cannot be waived in his case, even though he performed a truly miraculous feat. That is why the official charges are so strict. I find it quite hilarious, though, that in the next breath, the very same man informs him of a way to dodge this tax. And it is not anything illegal at all. It is simply a formal invitation to join their guild. This way, Verdun would not have to suffer such heavy deductions, because their guild in particular offers a much lower tax rate for its high-ranking adventurers. And in our hero's case, he would immediately start at the silver rank due to his incredible head start accomplishments. Unfortunately, even though the offer appears incredibly attractive here, it holds no real value for our determined mage, because joining would greatly hinder his ultimate plans for the future. In fact, there's something far more important to him than the vast sum of money he has received. So, with the cold composure of a predator, he calmly rejects the proposal, accepting the harsh tax cut. Verdun's priorities are absolute. This man seeks the power necessary to enact his righteous revenge. He's not about to become some influencer sitting on a pile of millions. For now, Verdun's internal monologue is quite interesting. He reflects upon his horrifying experiences in the Magic Tower, from the time he was used as nothing more than a test subject. Despite those 7 long, agonizing years of torment, the one truth that never changed about him is that he is, and always will be, a mage at heart. So he makes his way to the guild's cavernous storage area, believing that a true mage's path is paved with mystery and relentless research more than anything else. Hence, he has brought the corpse of the special orc variant that he personally slew. You know, the very same creature that was too voracious to die. Only this time, our hero is about to become a full-on surgeon and discover what made this unique monster so special. What is most interesting to Verdun is how the monster's physical remains have not yet decomposed. That is mostly thanks to a powerful artifact used by the guild, one that perfectly preserves the state of the creature. I have to point out, the way this story addresses these small, yet critical details like this is what makes it so very entertaining. Well, at the same time, the putrid stench emanating from the artifact is so foul that our boy is just about to faint. Anyway, observing its strange red pupils and its dark reddish skin. Both of these traits are a clear sign of normality. However, the creature's true uniqueness begins with its grotesquely torn mouth, giving it that Joker-like smile that you never want to see in your nightmares. On top of all that, it possesses an incredibly powerful physique compared to the others. While this physique is certainly special in its own unique class, when compared to much higher level monsters, like the fearsome orc warriors or the mighty orc lords, it is still not remarkably or uniquely special. The same logic applies to the monster's overall intelligence. While it is smart, it is not the most cunning or clever of creatures. From the looks of it, Verdun is of the strong opinion that this isn't a simple case of monstrous evolution, but is more likely a strange case of mutation. Even though it makes logical sense to call it a mutation, he is still not entirely convinced of his own initial conclusion, an unsure and contemplative expression appearing on his face. The main reason he is so unsure is actually because of the fact that the orc's incredible regeneration ability is still extremely difficult to logically explain. Then, the immense strength gained on top of its consumption ability makes it even more ambiguous as to what this thing truly is. While carefully inspecting the creature's massive body, Verdun is fortunate enough to discover a very specific scar, one which appears to be quite odd. And here's the thing. True regeneration is supposed to return a body to its previous perfect state. The very fact that this same monster was able to withstand our boy's powerful flame spells, even with a severely burned body and chopped off flesh, means that it also should have been able to heal a tiny, insignificant wound without leaving behind any scar. Something about this scar is deeply suspicious. So, Verdun draws an even closer, more detailed look, concluding that the monster must have received this strange scar long before it gained its powerful regenerative abilities. And that can only mean that some kind of surgery was performed on it. After all, the only way humans can acquire new powers long after their birth was through the natural means of evolution. But with this clear example, the one logical conclusion that rises to the top in Verdun's astute observation is that this entire creature was somehow artificially created. And if his grave suspicions are indeed correct, it is the worst possible situation imaginable for everyone involved. The very following day, the knights have arrived to bid their farewell to the incredibly talented mage, referring to him as a savior who deserves nothing less than a proper send-off. Our boy calmly counters, believing that he has already received far too much generous support from them. Also, he has now acquired the beast hide, robe, and the powerful ring of circulation as his new, upgraded artifacts. This provides him with a slight but welcome boost in his mana capacity and recovery speed. The Knight Commander firmly assures him that he is deserving of all the generous support, and hearing that, Verdun thanks his new friends and bids them a final farewell, sincerely hoping to meet them all again someday. As he is preparing to leave, they do him one final favor by telling him to visit any branch of the Conrad Merchant Guild, as they will surely become a great source of support for him. After learning about his close relationship with the knights, Verdun heads off on his journey shortly after that. He soon arrives in the small village that borders both the Pyth and the Martes territories. Using the Flight Dispel spell, he dismounts and makes his way into the village. It is the only nearby place that will become a temporary safe haven for him to rest and fully recover for the long journey that lies ahead. So, he purchases an apple and continues on with his way. As he is walking, he overhears one of the local people venting their frustration and sense of defeat. Realizing that this is a golden opportunity to collect valuable information, our boy decides to discreetly eavesdrop using his Whisper of the Wind spell. The two men are heatedly discussing the recent issue of the goblins, who have stolen all of their livestock, ending in a great financial loss for them. And not just that, but now they have to put up a great deal of money for adventurers to get the difficult job done for them. One of them believes they should have handled it all by themselves, as it would have certainly saved them some money. Unfortunately, that decision was completely outside of their control from the very beginning, as the village chief himself had emphasized for the dangerous job to be handled by professional adventurers. They just have to patiently wait for another day and let the so-called big heroes handle all the rest, even though their required fee is quite costly. Having heard all of this commotion about the goblins, our boy begins to wonder why the goblins would invade this particular village at all. The goblins of this specific world are actually quite interesting. They always begin with small, seemingly insignificant thefts, but eventually raid in massive groups to take over entire villages, and then feast upon the people. You can think of them like a spreading disease. And in order to get rid of that vile disease, the adventurers are called in to handle it right away. Verdun thinks that this is all just standard operating procedure, so it is nothing for him to be overly worried about. But just at the moment he is about to leave, the two men begin to discuss a strange rumor of a unique monster being spotted in the nearby forest. Interestingly enough, the village chief had specifically requested that this information not be spread around, but the loudmouthed man talks about it anyway, thinking that no one is around to hear, no one except our boy. That is, apparently, a local man known as James wanted to set a simple trap for hunting like usual, but then suddenly he found himself drawn to the sound of a wild boar whining in the distance. And then he saw it, a gigantic goblin straight out of your worst nightmares, feasting upon the poor boar. The goblin shared that same torn mouth and is described as being even larger than a common orc. Of course, this all sounds utterly absurd, so they do not want the adventurers to find out, out of fear that they will dramatically increase their fee. But our boy has now heard all he came here to hear. He silently deactivates the spell and contemplates this new information. The thing that seems most striking to him is the very specific description of the creature sharing a torn mouth. In any case, This is a very good thing, because it is leading him ever closer to the truth, thanks to his direct experience fighting the terrifying orc variant. That same day, deep in the forest, a group of adventurers are busy hunting down the annoying goblins, like a swarm of pests. Introducing the Silver Rankers, Myrna and Loki, who appear to be completely unfazed by this simple mission. Loki appears to be a rather teasing individual, and he openly mocks Myrna for feeling proud of hitting a target that was just standing in front of her. These two clearly have some bad blood between them, while the other pair is far more serious and wants to treat this mission as such. They are also both respected silver rank adventurers. Iris learns from Mild about the direction of the main goblin force. The man suspects that the rest of them must be hiding deep inside the giant cave, which is clearly a goblin's main lair. Before they approach, the astute and careful Iris realizes they are actually dealing with hobgoblins, a much higher and more intelligent species compared to the normal ones. Even so, the task should still be well within their control, as long as they remain careful about their immediate surroundings. The mission now rolls into its final, decisive phase. As the entire group begins to approach the ominous cave, Iris confidently leads them by commanding the swift destruction of all the warning devices and the various magical totems, with the totems destroyed. She then uses her Imbue Sight as her next spell, allowing her entire team to easily operate within the oppressive dark without any vision problems. She tells them that they will not be needing any torches thanks to her spell. Impressed, as he always is, Loki holds their powerful leader in extremely high regard for always being so dependable. With this firm assurance, the group heads into the pitch-black cave, but as they're making their way deeper inside, the leader finds herself worriedly glancing at the cave's exit for a moment. It is as if she could feel a faint hint of mana coming from directly behind them. Of course, she quickly disregards her own gut feel, but unbeknownst to her, her sharp suspicion is absolutely correct. There really is someone else lurking just behind them. Deep inside the cave, the tiny goblins appear to be worshipping the lives that were lost. They are screeching about until they're suddenly attacked. From a great distance, an arrow swiftly pierces through one of them, killing it instantly. With one of them down, the two swordsmen rush into battle and kill all the rest. Even Myrna thinks to herself that things are going far too smoothly, meaning they will be finished with this entire mission very soon. But their perceptive leader is still on her guard, believing that they should not loosen up just yet, with the goblins killed. Suddenly, they hear a strange, loud noise, immediately attracting the entire group's attention. To help scout ahead for them, Myrna decides to bravely go on ahead. And I have to say, I can sense a huge, ominous death flag for her. I truly hope that I am wrong. Iris simply reminds her to be careful. As she heads away, the unfortunate adventurer ends up discovering a truly horrific sight. Tiny goblins severed violently from limb to limb. Their mutilated bodies are scattered and splattered all over the ground. This horrifying realization shakes her to her very soul, as Myrna is now at a complete and utter loss for words. Loki even comes up to ask her what is taking her so long. She cannot even begin to form a proper sentence because of the distant, truly horrific sounds she keeps hearing up ahead. Just up ahead, the monstrous goblin is busy preying on its own lesser kind. Its alien-like size completely dwarfs the adventurers by comparison. They're like mere ants, busy watching a dinosaur-sized goblin going completely rabid, unable to even begin to comprehend what is now before their very eyes. They simply stare, completely frightened. The seemingly mutated variant is taking a great and terrible delight in every single bite. But even then, the adventurers were certainly not reported about this creature in their official mission details. And this is the exact part where they make a truly big mistake, thinking that they can easily best this creature, because all it really has is its giant size, right? Iris quickly explains the battle plan, ordering Myrna to target the monstrous creature's right eye and destroy it. Mild and Loki will then act as a vital distraction. Until then, they all get into their battle positions, as Iris will be the final one to finish this terrifying creature off with her final, devastating attack. The plan swings into immediate motion, as the blonde archer swiftly whips out 3 deadly arrows and takes her perfect aim from a decisive, hidden position. From this specific angle, the giant goblin seems completely unaware and, frankly, doesn't even appear to care. Myrna confidently locks onto her target, and to my own personal shock, she successfully and completely destroys its eye. With the monster now processing the intense pain, the 2 powerful swordsmen jump directly into the action, ready to assault the creature and keep it sufficiently busy. Loki is immediately ahead of the curve and lunges forward. His powerful attack is a straightforward slash that cuts deep into the goblin's body, but not nearly enough to sever it completely in half, even though it is a very decent first attack. Loki does not have any time to do much more. as the giant, enraged goblin immediately targets him for its first kill. The team leader and powerful mage, Iris, commands her mana burst spell, unleashing multiple explosive attacks that make their way directly to the goblin's massive body and violently detonate upon direct impact. With all of the immense pain that the creature has now been dealt, it begins wailing in so much agonizing pain that it picks up one of the fresh corpses of the tiny goblins and furiously chucks it just like a massive cannonball. Loki simply cannot believe his own two eyes. The now enraged monster tossed a seriously powerful projectile by simply using its own previous prey. Things are certainly not looking great for Iris, because she is currently defenseless, and if this powerful attack were to connect, she would certainly be done for. But luckily, that is where our mysterious boy swoops right in to save the day. Activating his powerful aerial spell, he protects Iris as it violently redirects the goblin corpse just next to her. The small creature's body is reduced to a bloody splat upon impact, leaving nothing of its flesh or bones behind. Iris falls in utter despair, having just had an intimate, close encounter with her own death. Myrna immediately goes on the offensive once again, launching more of her deadly arrows and completely blinding the goblin. Ultimately, the giant, monstrous goblin falls heavily to the ground, signaling its final and complete defeat. Immediately, the rest of the group rushes to check on their fallen leader, deeply concerned with Iris's current state. But thankfully, absolutely nothing happened to her. If the goblin corpse did in fact hit her, that would have been a completely different story, and Iris fully understands that now. She cannot explain how the projectile's trajectory changed just before contact. The only good thing is that they have now completed their mission without suffering any casualties, and it is finally time for them to return back to the village for their just reward. Things actually turn out way smoother than I had initially thought, and even Verdun, who is secretly helping them from the shadows, thinks that everything was resolved quite peacefully. Our boy used his trusty invisibility cloak, channeling the very spirit of Harry Potter, and follows them all around. This very way, he was able to observe yet another living specimen of the artificial demi-humans, comparing his vast experience with the previous test subject. And then with this one, Verdun is able to point out the clear similarity. These unique creatures all have a torn mouth on them, carving out a truly demonic smile. It is because of that very fact that he now refers to them as the Jesters. However, this giant goblin appears to be quite different from the typical case of the other Jesters, because not only did this particular creature lack any enhanced physical strength, but it was also completely unable to regenerate or grow more powerful by devouring members of its own kind. This all leads to the idea that perhaps this specific creature is nothing more than a failed experiment among the Jesters. At the very same time, our boy is left with a very positive impression of the powerful mage, Iris, the one who is leading the group, and is currently running a final, thorough check on the slain goblins. He understands that she possesses extremely sharp judgment and a very good sensitivity to the flow of mana. The very fact that she could sense his own mana from outside the cave is impressive enough. Despite his own secret contribution, our boy was not able to find anything truly notable in the end. Suddenly, his attention snaps toward another person, who is surprised to find a few unexpected visitors in his private cave. This mysterious man's uniform is quite different from that of a usual adventurer, causing Iris to remain on her guard and demand for his immediate identification. She sternly warns him not to come any closer. The man amusingly apologizes directly to them, even though they are the ones who have barged into the very place that he was supposed to be looking after and have completely ruined everything. He's surprised that the goblin managed to build a powerful totem while he was away, even though he had specifically wanted this particular cave to be kept in total secrecy. Unfortunately, the incredibly obvious placement of the totem had exposed the goblin's secret hideout. The man appears quite disappointed that, even after directly manipulating the test creature's brain, he was not able to find much luck in making it completely and utterly obedient. Can I just say that? This guy is acting way too nonchalant for the dangerous situation he is now in. That is how you know this dude is a complete and utter psychopath. He is even asking them about any strange observations they made about the goblin, or any unusual or notable behaviors they might have observed. But when they do not give him any sort of response, the man is even more severely disappointed, because it only confirms that the creature was just a plain, ordinary specimen. At the end of the long day, he thinks to himself that his professor will be mad after hearing about all of this. This man loves to talk. He is dropping a lot of airballs because no one is currently entertaining a single response. The guy thinks that he cannot do much else in this particular situation, except to simply start all over again. Ultimately, he confirms that the 4 unlucky adventurers will surely meet their deaths right here. This immediately prompts Iris's group directly into battle mode. She is curious as to how he is planning to fight them all while being so severely outnumbered. But this guy appears to have some kind of powerful anti-jump spell straight from the Heian era. A spell which Sukuna could have really used in his own final battle. Anyway, he is certainly not planning on letting them go, because they have completely ruined his very important experimental research. But it's not like he was planning to let them leave here alive anyway, if it had been a completely different outcome. Basically, by entering this cave, they have signed their own death sentence. Iris strongly opposes the very idea of a pointless fight, stating that they will keep their mouths completely shut about everything. That went down here today. However, the distrusting man thinks that this guarantee simply is not there and unsheathes his sword, just as I predicted. He really is a complete and utter psychopath because he does not care much at all about his failed experiment. All that he truly cares about is slaughtering them all in cold blood. He slowly walks up to them, hoping to pick his very first kill. But Verdun finally breaks his long silence and tells the scumbag that he is the only one who is going to die here today. At first, the guy tries to once again ridicule Iris, until he hilariously realizes that the mysterious voice came from directly behind him. Before he can even begin to react, the man gets hit with a heavy magic spell, launching him violently straight into the nearby wall. Our powerful mage now officially reveals himself, believing that this wannabe tough guy should probably just pack it all up because he is completely and utterly outmatched, purely aura farming and giving us a truly epic performance. Verdun prepares another powerful lightning spell to take him down for good. In his mind, Verdun never truly intended to reveal himself in this manner. But if he had not, then the other adventurers, who were all exhausted from their previous brutal battle, who have all been mercilessly annihilated at the hands of this truly evil man. From the bizarre situation he has just observed, the man had called this dead goblin a simple test subject. And not just that, but there's also some mysterious professor involved, according to the very man's own revealing words. This completely confirms all of his previous suspicions. The strange creatures, now known as the Jesters, are directly related to this guy and his mysterious group. And speaking of him, the dude is extremely pissed because our boy just crashed his little party. He angrily demands to know Verdun's true identity, instead of giving him a long and boring introduction. He chillingly replies that there is absolutely no need to answer such a question, and invokes a few powerful magic circles for his next devastating attack. The man does not care if the mysterious mage is uninterested in talking. After all, he is definitely going to kill him for even daring to attack. Saying so, the evil swordsman furiously lunges forth to close the distance. However, Verdun is already fully prepared with his multi-flame arrow spell, unleashing a barrage of bursting projectiles directly in his way. But his determined opponent appears to be quite determined. And not just that, he is also extremely skilled, being able to dodge past all of the arrows with incredible super speed, and even managing to unleash his own first furious attack. If our hero had not been careful just now, he would have surely been impaled. But thankfully, he put up his powerful barrier just in time to block the sword. Even then, the sheer magnitude of the attack is enough to put visible cracks in his sturdy defensive barrier. So, in swift retaliation, the powerful mage unleashes his devastating monopole strike, which releases so much raw force that it sends the swordsman flying back. So far, Verdun is beginning to think that his mysterious opponent is using some kind of magic to heavily reinforce his legs, because that would explain why he is moving so incredibly fast. And not just that, but this guy's sword strikes are even faster than any of the powerful knights in the Pyth territory. So he completely outclasses them in both sheer speed and raw strength, making this a considerably difficult battle for even someone as talented as Verdun. This clearly calls for a significant change in his combat strategy, since his current defensive approach is simply not working. Just as Verdun is truly impressed, so too is his dangerous opponent. The Dark Swordsman takes careful note of his opponent's quick spellcast and begins to wonder what rank he truly is. He also thinks that it is now time to unleash his own speed just a little bit, to completely overwhelm the powerful mage, bursting forth with a lunge even faster than before. He makes his way forward to finally cut our boy down, but Verdun simply welcomes him with his powerful dual casting abilities. Using Winter, gale, and icicle spells in perfect unison to create a truly powerful new attack. Even the formidable swordsman is startled by the fact that this mage just combined the elements of ice and wind together. The resulting spell, known as Icicle Blast, is a direct result of this powerful combination, and it is a great hindrance, as many sharp spikes now block the swordsman's direct path. Even still, he manages to navigate through them without much trouble at all. Though he is impressed, I have to admit, this dude is an absolute force of nature. He does not want to stop, and he is even now ready to deal the final, decisive blow, thinking that Verdun's raw talent is completely useless if he cannot even hit something with it. But little does he know, he has fallen right into our boy's clever trap, because right as he is about to cut the powerful mage down, our boy dodges it with a JoJo-ass pose, looking absolutely majestic as hell. The entire room is completely and utterly shocked. A simple mage was somehow able to dodge the attack of a speed blitzing swordsman. And now, for the absolutely beautiful finisher. Verdun channels Gojo Satoru's very own aura, and just like Gojo famously says purple, this man simply says, ignition. He unleashes a truly destructive spell that blows up the entire surrounding space. Unfortunately, the powerful swordsman is somehow able to survive the initial blast, even though he was completely outsmarted by the wily mage, who had lured him in specifically to strike him down. This clearly demonstrates that Verdun is not just a highly talented mage, but also a truly genius-level tactician. Still, the swordsman thinks that this is all completely useless, because the very same clever tactic will not work on him twice. Realizing that his little gimmicks will not work anymore, Verdun confidently doubles down by saying that he will now start fighting like a proper, powerful mage. Then, first, he uses a strange spell on the adventurers who are just behind him, using his manipulation of the ground to erect a massive tower from the very earth. Iris is visibly startled, and so is the rest of her group, not knowing when it will possibly stop rising. It actually does stop, but by the time that it does, you can basically call it a cliff with that kind of height. Iris quickly realizes that Verdun has just used the powerful spell of terrain manipulation, even though it surely cost him a great deal of precious mana, especially when he desperately needs that very mana in a dangerous fight like this one. And not just that, but from her keen observation of his dual casting ability, she's starting to believe that he has a giant-ass pool of mana deep inside of him, because whatever he is currently doing is far beyond the normal abilities of a standard mage. She then straight up says that his personal fighting style is completely and utterly unorthodox and unique. That is right, folks, because it's not even just a meme anymore. Verdun really do be moving just like Gojo. With the commanding way, he is looking down on his powerful opponent. The swordsman thinks that flying up high in the air is a truly cowardly move for a mage, especially when he thought that much more was yet to come. But then, the horrible realization finally clicks in his mind. Sure, Verdun has used the flight spell to move up into the air, but that then begs the question, why did he risk expending an immense and valuable amount of mana to secure the other adventurers so far up top? As he glances at his own watery reflection in the water below, he realizes that the powerful ignition spell from before had caused all of the icicle shards to completely melt. Now, get ready for a pure and absolute masterclass on battle strategy, because the very next attack is going to be absolutely everything. Verdun readies himself for the final assault, while the swordsman begins to shiver in the terrifying realization of what is about to happen. Even a powerful Iris is at a complete loss for words. The astounding mage unleashes a full and devastating release of raw lightning magic, as a powerful thunder pulsates from his very being. It is a type of magic so incredibly rare that only a very rare exception of professors at the renowned Magic Academy can even begin to use it, invoking the third rank. Verdun roars down the powerful spell, Thunder Strike, directly upon his opponent. This vividly reminds me of Sasuke's powerful lightning dragon spell, Kirin. The man shudders in extreme and unbearable pain, questioning if he is currently facing off against the god Zeus out here. The very fact that this man has used 3 basic elemental types, and even the highly advanced element of pure lightning. And speaking of triple casting, Verdun uses all 3 of those elements to attack the now stunned swordsman. The resulting attack ends in pure destruction, raising up clouds of smoke and dust by the end of that devastating strike. Verdun calmly descends from the air to interrogate the pathetic, broken state of his defeated opponent, inquiring about the strange orc variant he had encountered in the Pyth territory. Now, he's intensely curious if everything is somehow connected to this mysterious professor figure. The slanting, bloody body of the swordsman violently trembles, but he still manages to muster the ability to speak and express his utter shock, realizing at last that Verdun is the very one responsible for annihilating the powerful orc variant. Even in his broken state, a malicious, twisted smile comes over his face as he questions if Verdun has perhaps come from the Ark. This is quite surprising, even for our powerful mage, who does not appear to have any prior knowledge of it. The swordsman thinks that it is perfectly alright if he does not know what the Ark is. He just simply wants to be killed now, especially when his very body is bent in more ways than I can possibly count. Verdun prolongs his suffering and urges him to reveal information about the professor, stating that he is very interested in the experiments they are currently conducting. Of course, the swordsman fully and completely understands that it would be extremely detrimental to his entire group if he were to share any information on the mysterious professor. So, he instead baits Verdun by spitting out a desperate final attack, hoping that they will both die together. In this very instance, the projectile is incredibly quick, and though it was a clever final attack, our boy easily blocks it with his powerful, impenetrable barrier. Realizing that this is all he is going to get from the defeated swordsman, our boy finally puts him out of his misery with his Earth Shatter ability. What a truly gruesome and brutal end. And yet, despite getting this far, he still was not able to learn anything about the mysterious jesters. As for the now saved adventuring group, these guys are out here completely intimidated by our powerful mage. They are on their guard, as his looming, imposing figure orders them to now work for him from now on. In the very next scene, we suddenly jump ahead to the part where Iris is collecting the additional compensation in reward from the village chief for successfully clearing the difficult mission. Also, she made absolutely sure to firmly threaten the villagers for completely failing to report the mutated goblin's direct involvement. And just to keep her completely quiet, the terrified village chief threw in an additional hefty 1 million. It is very good money, and she now thinks that they have finally paid their dues, which means they can now part their ways with the mysterious mage. However, our boy firmly stops them and hands him a generous cut, stating that it is their deserved commission fee for the very next mission. After all, they will be heading to the great city of Martes from this very village, and he is certainly going to need her help. Shortly after this entire incident, they all began their long journey to the fabled Martes city. The new party leader, that being our mage, found that Iris was completely obsessed with him during their travels together, wanting to know all about his extensive knowledge of elemental theory and magic. It is not like she was a particularly annoying person, so he gladly entertained her with a good, intellectual conversation. But before too long, they were already in the great city. Knowing that this place is absolutely huge, Verdun thinks that it must surely have some kind of banking system. After all, he's got several important reports to inform the Adventurers Guild about. Iris then inquires where he would like to go first. He shares with her his intentions of opening up a new bank account, as well as taking care of the massive bounty. For that, she highly recommends heading directly to the city hall. Iris guides him there right away, because she happens to know this particular place from top to bottom. The absolutely hilarious reaction comes from the rest of her former group. They simply cannot believe that she is acting so incredibly chill around the very same dude who just murdered that powerful swordsman without any apparent hesitation. But aside from all that, let's talk a little bit about the bounty rewards. They are all handled directly through the Martes City Hall. Unfortunately, Verdun was just about to get into serious trouble for not having an ID on him, because he has yet to create one after he completely switched bodies. Luckily though, thanks to the official guarantee he received from the powerful Baron Pyth, no one even asked him shit. Even the stern guard ended up being completely stumped and allowed him to simply enter. But aside from that, when the news of him greatly impressing Baron Pyth had spread about, they are all shown great and wonderful hospitality because of his heroic acts for saving the entire Pyth territory. This is mainly because his own family resides there, and Verdun had indirectly ensured their complete safety. And not only that, the powerful mage is granted an official ID as well, to properly commemorate his monumental achievements. Thanks to that, he was finally able to open his own bank account. So, everything has now taken care of itself. Of course, he already possesses a second account back in Verona, but the very moment he makes any transactions from it, the Sinister Tower Master will surely hunt for him and connect all the dots. Our hero simply cannot risk being careless for the time being. Up next, he makes his way over to a blacksmith, requesting that his powerful wand be converted into a fearsome staff. Of course, this is going to take a considerable amount of time and rare materials to craft to perfection. So, a waiting time of 3 whole days is requested. In the meantime, the blacksmith hands him an absolutely amazing looking staff, one that is adorned with a large, purple jewel on it. Iris now wonders if he takes a personal liking to them over wands. The thing is, because he was treated like absolute dirtbag in a magic tower, they had forced him to use simple brooms for sweeping. That is how he developed the ingrained habit of using a long staff. He does not dare to tell Iris any of this personal information, and simply moves on to their very next intended location, the Great Martez Public Library. This particular place is supposed to have excellent books on enchantment. Magic. Iris is able to confirm this, but she still believes that the books here will be far, far below his current level. To her absolute shock, Verdun expresses a deep interest in even the most basic books, and desires to possess every single one of them again. She is completely taken aback by his highly unusual request. Shortly after this happens, the poor, unfortunate girl has to bundle up a literal tower of basic spell books. Even the bored receptionist is like, what the actual F*** is even going on here? Our boy calmly tells him to charge all of the required fees to his personal bank account for simply renting out all of the books. And he would also like for them to be delivered directly to the top floor of his hotel. When the confused receptionist asks just how many books he wants to have delivered, Verdun hilariously and matter-of-factly responds, expressing his genuine interest in possessing all of them. Both him and the beleaguered Iris are at a complete loss for words. At this point, the associated costs are not that much of a problem for our boy, as he has received his massive bounty money already. He has successfully created a bank account and had a powerful new staff made, along with all of the necessary books being rented. By the eventual end of their long day, Iris is a complete and sloppy mess, completely and utterly exhausted. But our boy is doing just fine, quietly reading his books. The new party leader still has no idea what kind of man he truly is, and she curiously asks him if he has met all of his destinations yet. Verdun ambiguously replies that this is quite enough for today, which is of course utterly terrifying, because it means that she will now have to help him navigate to even more places. Realizing that she has never even once asked for his name, she wonders what he would prefer to be called by using the simple name Asher as his new alias. He clearly does not care much about what names he uses. Iris promises to call him Asher from now on, so long as he also agrees to treat her more casually. Sensing a truly great opportunity here, the inquisitive girl decides to finally ask him the one single question that has been bothering her the most. Just what was he really doing in that dark cave? This is very bad. You can see it clearly in our boy's expression that he really does not want to answer that particular one. He cannot simply make the excuse of having saved them by sheer, random coincidence. So, he decides instead to go with a much more general excuse. Verdun immediately drops his formal tone of voice and simply reveals that he was hunting down his personal target, realizing that it is actually the fearsome swordsman that he is talking about. She quickly reflects on their brief conversation regarding the mysterious professor. It now makes her wonder if his true role is like that of a secret, undercover investigator, one who is hunting down a powerful and corrupt organization. Unfortunately, our boy freely admits that he did not get much information from his hunt, but he is genuinely glad for her valuable help for the day. She then helps him out by escorting him back to his fancy hotel. The dark of night comes by, and she bids him a final farewell. Iris finally lets out a deep sigh of immense relief. She is finally done with the task of helping him get around. Completely exhausted, she takes a brief moment of rest on a nearby bench, realizing that she is currently dealing with one very strange and powerful man. But the very fact that he can possess multiple different elemental attributes all at once and at the same time carry an absurdly large amount of mana is what makes him so very special in her own eyes. But aside from all that, even for his young age, he's got an insanely good grasp on the fundamental theory of all magic, even better than some of her very own esteemed professors. Complimenting our boy internally ends up in her drooling over his very good looks. I mean, he is textbook Gojo Satoru, but with slightly longer hair. Then again, she finds it quite hilarious that he is so completely dry and unentertaining in his regular conversations. It is like speaking with an inanimate object. Iris is out here getting intense butterflies just by thinking about him, and has to physically stop herself from doing so, comparing him to all the rest of the mages that ever graduate from the prestigious Magic Academy. She now concludes that Verdun is the most skilled one of them all. He is the very definition of a truly talented individual. Now more determined than ever, she prepares herself to bother him even more about magic. But then, shit goes from 0 to 100 instantly, when a giant fiery explosion wipes out his entire hotel and engulfs it in massive flames. Iris's hopeful expression immediately turns to one of pure despair, seeing the entire place burning away, starting from the very top floor, right where he is supposed to be staying. Suddenly, A certain man's imposing silhouette starts to appear from within the column of roaring flames. And to her absolute and utter horror, it is him. It is Asher, and he's got a truly angry and vengeful look on his face. The scene suddenly cuts to the supposed mysterious professor, who has freshly heard about the shocking news of Surgeon's sudden death. You know, the very same guy with a powerful sword. Completely unfazed, the professor simply asks about his killer. He soon learns that there were some lingering traces of offensive magic discovered deep inside the dark cave. This implies that the murderer is still unknown. But before the poor dude can even finish his damning sentence, the enraged professor violently shatters a glass directly on his head, angrily stating that there is no point in playing the fool in this serious situation. In an assertive, bone-chilling, and terrifying tone, the professor pierces him with his cold glare and angrily repeats his pointed question. And this time, the henchman explains that they have yet to successfully lock down on a single suspect, but they have successfully acquired some critical evidence of a party that raided the very cave upon a nearby village's official request. The professor finds this to be extremely disappointing news. The untimely loss of Sergen is clearly grieved by him because he was one of the more reliable and dependable people around. He also comes to discover that the important test subject has also now been killed. The physical remains of the goblin have been completely erased, as well as those of Sergen. But the ruthless professor does not seem to care much about that. He is just simply pissed that they were completely unable to track down the man who had killed Sergen. The very fact that two of his most trusted test subjects from the distant Pyth territory were lost in a single row, and then the goblin and Sergen have also now been killed, even though the grand results of his long experimentation are just about to reach completion. The worried professor is starting to think that perhaps the prying outside world is finally catching on to them. This time, he orders the man to kill the unknown perpetrator for good, though he quietly obeys his orders. The dude is clearly seething on the inside because of the professor's arrogant attitude. He now fully intends to make a powerful statement by returning with the severed head of the man who is responsible, just to finally shut his old ass up for good. And then, let's go back just a few short minutes before the grand explosion had happened. Verdun had found himself calmly reading about some basic magic spells, while his would-be spy was actually observing him quietly from the shadows, as he had stumbled about while reading all of the books, and finding them to be quite inefficient for the most part. The foolish spy had thought that he would easily be able to kill Verdun the very moment that he had finally went to sleep. But all of a sudden, the entire room had went completely quiet. That is, until Verdun suddenly chanted Earthbone as a powerful spell, scaring the absolute crap out of Guy as he flew away in absolute fear. With his hidden position now completely exposed, he quickly takes to the high ground, completely unable to comprehend how he was detected, despite his powerful stealth ability. And that now leads us directly to the current tense situation. The now vicious Verdun is locking down on his intended target from among the growing crowd. The terrified spy is scared as all hell and wants to make a desperate run for it. And he, also, simply cannot believe that our boy had the balls to pull off an explosive spell inside of a public and crowded hotel. Having now confirmed his powerful third-tier magic status, he fully intends to make a hasty retreat. My majestic, blue-eyed king simply hovers menacingly in the air like a veritable god in order to successfully fabricate his quick escape. The clever man stirs up even more chaos by calling our mage a terrorist and labeling him as the clear and obvious enemy. This gets the entire crowd panicking wildly. Pure chaos immediately ensues as Verdun finds himself completely astonished. He is now dealing with an assassin that somehow bypassed his magic detection spell. The only conceivable reason our boy was even able to catch him was because of the assassin's very own costly mistake, having now erased his own presence completely once again. Verdun is able to find him again quite quickly, arguing that to erase oneself so completely actually makes them even more obvious. It is like a black hole on a simple piece of paper. It simply stands out. The furious mage roars down a powerful spell and catches the guy directly with his attack. Even the experienced assassin is having a very hard time understanding how this man was possibly able to use pure Manhwa logic to so easily find him over here. He is now frightened to the very point that he compares Verdun to a literal monster, a cruel creature that does not care about the well-being of any of the civilians, as he recklessly throws around such dangerous and powerful spells. It would be absolutely right to consider Verdun to be completely ruthless in battle, because this man now prepares yet another powerful magic arrow circle and unleashes it directly upon the now fleeing assassin. Unfortunately, the assassin manages to break into a nearby building so that he can now shelter himself from any more of the devastating aerial attacks. This now forces our mage to dispel his spell and return to the ground. He follows him directly inside, realizing that his clever opponent has deliberately picked a specific place that is packed with drunken, unruly vagrants. Right away, the people in here are all acting quite suspiciously, even though Verdant just simply wants to know about the guy who had just run through this place. The bald-headed man tells him that if he wants to get any valuable information, he will have to put up a truly valuable price for it. Realizing that he is now at a lost cause in here, our boy turns his full attention back to his immediate surroundings and assesses that there are not any visible exits to be found around here. Right as he is thinking that the assassin must be hiding inside, the swordsman suddenly tears directly through the bald head's vulnerable chest. His brutal strategy was to clearly and completely surprise Verdant by attacking him directly through an innocent vagrant. A brutal and unexpected move, yes, but also a truly cowardly strategy in his own eyes. Unleashing his powerful shockwave spell, he forcefully sends the assassin flying backwards, forcing some much-needed distance between the two of them. But even so, this much is certainly not enough to take out this dangerous guy. He manages to block most of it with his blade and quickly assesses the dire situation, knowing that ordinary mages are completely incapable of both attack and defending themselves at the very same time. The assassin's entire strategy now hinges on forcing Verdant to open up a powerful magic barrier, and in that precise moment, he will then use a clever smoke bomb to get his ass out of this precarious location. But our boy is completely ready for that coming smoke. The assassin openly and foolishly lunges forward to strike him down, hoping for the exact moment that his powerful opponent will finally cast and open a defensive barrier. But to his utter and complete shock, the swift response from the mage is not one of pure defense, but is rather a devastatingly offensive spell. He uses his Earthbone spell in the place of a normal barrier, completely and utterly putting the assassin off his guard. With a massive lump of pure mana now concentrated on the very edge of his staff, the overwhelming and powerful mage powers up his central crystal, making the assassin realize that he is now dealing with a rare type of mage that does not even lose in straight-up close-quarters combat. From everything that he has been able to observe so far, the assassin is now damn certain that he is dealing with someone who clearly possesses the incredible caliber of a legendary war mage, which is a truly sick-ass title, if you were to ask me. The now charged staff strikes the assassin's vulnerable abdomen with so much immense force that it forces a great deal of blood out of him. But even that is not enough. There is also a tasty dessert in the form of his Earthbone spell. The assassin now thinks that he is cooked for good. In a last-ditch, desperate clinch, he uses the smoke bomb and successfully creates a small window to finally escape. Verdant quickly gets rid of all the concealing smoke using his whirlwind ability. But by the time that he is able to do that, the wily assassin has already disappeared. All that he needed was a single second to use Batman's secret, patented disappearing technique. Now, things have ended up in shit, and they're only going to get much worse from here, because the guards of the city have all now gathered to finally arrest the dangerous arsonist, who is responsible for having blown up the entire hotel. I am honestly starting to consider him to be some kind of a newbie superhero, one who is incredibly reckless and does not know how to control his immense powers, or how to properly prevent any unwanted collateral damage. The dreadful news has now reached the ears of the powerful city mayor, who cannot quite place a finger on how the great hero of the PYKEH territory has now suddenly become the most wanted terrorist of Martez City. Henry is soon informed that the mysterious mage, Asher, says that he was suddenly attacked by someone who had tried to assassinate him directly in his very own inn, which then led to all of these various complications. And furthermore, they have now drawn a direct relationship between this new incident and another, one that involved the mysterious murder of an adventurer in their own guild. Hence, that is why the great guildmaster of the city, Oscar, has personally decided to directly oversee the entire situation. Mayor Henry now realizes that the poor mage must be feeling quite rightly annoyed, having just stepped foot into their city and already having been brutally attacked. As for the extensive damages, it is now clear that the entire top floor of the hotel has been utterly destroyed to a considerable amount. There's also a newly reported death of a known criminal, the very same vagrant who was present in the building at the time. The dangerous assassin is now directly linked to both of these damages and is currently being actively tracked down. But not just that. They have also now received a personal testimony that proves Asher's complete innocence. An adventurer has shared that Asher had found a strange, mutated goblin and had also managed to defeat a dangerous swordsman back in the cave. But when other people had arrived to properly investigate the cave, there was absolutely no mention of any of the goblins. Not even any of the corpses were left behind. The entire cave was completely empty. This new information is truly quite significant, as the cave was somehow wiped completely clean. Mayor Henry now realizes that all of these various incidents must be somehow linked with one another, and the very fact that they're all being covered up to such great lengths strongly suggests the direct work of an evil, clandestine organization, one that specifically hunts down unsuspecting adventurers. He now wonders if there are any more new reports of incidents just like these. To that, Oscar reveals that they have already attempted to give Asher a personal bodyguard. However, because of what had happened just the other day, someone has now maliciously spread the nasty rumor of Asher being the evil mastermind behind the recent terrorist attack. And that is exactly why no one now wants to protect him, deeming him to be truly evil and completely untrustworthy. It is a truly frustrating situation, even for the powerful mayor. His only remaining option now is to speak to his own personal knights for the important job. And so, the very following day, at the Martez City Hall, our boy found himself completely amazed by his newly crafted staff. I have to admit, it looks absolutely amazing as well. With his powerful new equipment now ready, our boy is ready to once again rumble. But right then, a strange knight comes along and finally finds him. Jason is the proud vice captain of all of the knights, and he's been assigned the important role of protection for the visiting mage. From his very first glance, even Jason cannot shake off the strange feeling that Verdun is the widely rumored and completely crazy mage. And speaking of our boy, he now realizes that the mayor no longer suspects him, if they're now assigning him a powerful bodyguard just like this. However, what is most interesting about Jason in particular is his very youthful looks, as well as his talented third-tier level of swordsmanship. Verdun now wants to leave the City Hall's grand reception area, but Jason thinks that he should first agree to the condition of letting him tag along with him first, considering this to be a rather unfortunate situation for him. He reluctantly agrees to take the young knight along with him, but this seemingly dismissive attitude completely humiliates the proud vice captain, because it clearly implies that the mysterious mage is looking down on him. After traveling for a full half of a day, Jason is now starting to get really and truly frustrated, and he questions where the hell it is that they're even going. Funnily enough, our boy simply reminds him that he can go wherever he so likes. His appointed bodyguard must now follow him, after all, but the young vice captain finds it to be extremely annoying that they have now walked for countless hours without any clear and apparent objective. But luckily for him, they have finally arrived at their destination. The very place which they have journeyed for so many long hours is now here, and it appears to be like a rather shabby, old, dilapidated building with absolutely nothing special about it. The vice captain simply cannot believe that they have wasted all of that time just to be standing in front of this place, right as he is inquiring about their main objective here. Verdun literally just blows the entire building up. This man clearly does not give a single flying fudge. Just imagine if there had been innocent people still inside. Michael Bay should really consider hiring this guy. The poor vice captain now shudders, in utter shock, having just witnessed our mage annihilate a building with his magic, without any apparent thought or hesitation. The powerful mage then expresses that he had come here specifically to find someone. More specifically, the scumbag assassin who had tried to brutally murder him just the other day. Jason then asks him to confirm the fleeing assassin's exact location, only for our boy to confirm that he is now somewhere around here. From their intense fight just the other night, our intelligent mage had briefly touched his body and had left a powerful spell on it. It is a unique and powerful spell that he has learned only recently, one that allows him to create powerful mana links and flows throughout various locations. It is called Trace and is formally considered to be a type of tracking magic. The very fact that his powerful spell is still up and actively run means that the foolish assassin has absolutely no idea that it has been placed on it. That is a very good thing for our mage, though, because with this, they have now managed to uncover a secret, hidden underground passage. Furthermore, the mana flow of his powerful spell tells him that the assassin has now gone down there. Based on the overall scale, Verdun now figures that this hidden underground passage must surely lead to somewhere far outside of the main city. He also learns that none of the other knights, or the people of Martez City, appear to be aware of this highly secret and hidden tunnel, even though they have all been trained to memorize all of the city's secret locations. And yet, this particular place was not considered to be one of them. The critical pieces now start to fall into place inside of his head, as Jason now connects the dots of the true purpose of this hidden tunnel, and he realizes that the entire city is at risk of an enormous and terrible security breach, one that can happen at any given time. Immediately, he whips out his trusty blade, urging that they must seal the hidden passageway up at once. But our powerful mage is not quite finished here just yet. Although sealing up the dangerous tunnel is quite important, what is even more important is following the assassin that has just escaped. Well, Jason now argues that they should immediately call for backup in a dangerous situation like this. But Verdun thinks that if they were to wait for too long, the cunning assassin will surely be able to escape. They must make haste in the present. In saying so, he descends directly into the hidden tunnel, leaving the poor knight at a complete loss for words. He thinks that Verdun is acting far too chill towards a proud vice-captain of the entire city. And yet again, it seems as though our mage is underestimating Jason's powerful abilities. Completely pissed off, he too now jumps directly inside the dark tunnel, believing that all mages must have the same extremely annoying attitude on them. Speaking of which, do you remember the cunning assassin that had just escaped? He is currently pacing around very slowly with Vegeta's iconic broken arm pose. The guy is currently moping over the very fact that he had wasted a shit ton of his time, just loafing around right after he had escaped from the previous battle. It had taken him some valuable time to properly recover and heal all of his wounds. He also made absolutely sure to cover up his own tracks, so that no lingering traces were left behind at all. That is why he has stayed in here for so very long. But with the terrible way he is now handling this particular situation, he is absolutely certain that his terrifying boss will surely end up killing him. He is so very frightened by that very thought that he even considers just running away to some other safe place. But how will that possibly make a single bit of difference? Because an organization as powerful as the fangs of gluttony will surely claw him down anyway. The very best he can do is to simply hope for the professor to take some mercy on him. A short while later, the beaten assassin shows up directly before the angry professor, who does not appear to be in a very pleasant mood at all. The troubling news of the Martez City incident has blown all over the place, to the very point that even he now knew all about it. The professor is now crashing out and pointing out the sheer and utter stupidity of his lowly servant, who has made such a spectacular and flashy performance that the entire city has now been made fully alert to their presence. Hilariously, he now thinks that this very guy is the absolute shittiest assassin, because he could not even do his one job right by simply keeping it all low. In order to hear his full side of the story, he now demands for a full and complete explanation on what had just happened. The unlucky guy starts off by discussing how he had went to Martez City and had checked with the local Department of Transit to try and uncover Verdun's current location. Though he had set up a careful ambush attempt, his clever and powerful opponent had still located him and had used a very destructive spell that had brought the entire situation directly to the face of the whole city. He had then done his best to hide among the growing crowd, but the persistent and stubborn mage had still stubbornly chased after him. A simple smoke bomb had saved his very life and had caused a forced retreat. Hearing all of this, the professor is not pleased at all by this news. He also now thinks that Verdun would have surely chased after the fleeing assassin, if not for the very fact that the knights of the city had directly confronted him at an extremely unfortunate timing, thus stopping his determined hunt. But even then, the powerful professor is certainly not having any of it. He now thinks that there's a much deeper goal that is associated with this strange mage, one that had ultimately stopped his determined hunt. The realization finally overcomes him. There was an intentional and specific reason why he had let the assassin run away just like that. And immediately, he tells the idiot assassin to immediately take off all of his armor and to burn it all down to the very ground. The poor assassin does not even know what is up and blindly follows the given order, burning all of his armor all at once. The now burned armor reveals the lingering traces of raw mana, calling back to the assassin's critical and costly mistake, back when he was struck directly by the powerful staff. Verdun had cast an additional unseen spell directly on it. The professor now goes completely ballistic, realizing that their very location has now been completely uncovered. They must now leave right away, securing the most important specimen and destroying absolutely everything else. But unfortunately for all of them, our boy now makes his own explosive and dramatic entrance right away, realizing exactly why his powerful trace spell had suddenly stopped working. He is actually glad that his foolish enemies had managed to uncover his secret plan, but it will not matter to them anymore. After all, they have now all been found, and there is absolutely no way for them to now escape. The dangerous game of cat and mouse is now done. Assessing the immediate threat level of the entire situation, Verdun immediately notes that the beaten guy in front of him is the very same assassin that had just attacked him, and the old man who is standing menacingly behind him, based on all of the clues that he has received along the way. Certainly has to be the evil professor who is linked to all of the dark experiments. Finding himself in a serious pinch, The evil professor finally stands off directly against the now crazy mage. He simply cannot believe that the Ark would ever send in such an utterly insane person from their own side. But annoyingly enough, Verdun still cannot fathom why the mysterious Ark is constantly being brought up whenever he directly confronts any of these strange people. It is just like the previous situation from back in the cave. He now wants to extract all of the vital information that he possibly can, but his most immediate job is to first knock the both of them down first. So he uses his Earth Spear spell to try and catch them both off guard. Well, the beaten assassin now steps in front of him to directly block the powerful spell. The professor is still extremely mad that his idiot subordinate has now messed up things, all the way to the very point that their enemies are now at their front door. With a dire situation just like this, the professor now tells him to try and stall for some more time, while he can now move his own grand plan forward. Verdun certainly does not want his ass to be simply running away, so he quickly casts more of his powerful magic arrows to try and catch him. Unfortunately, they're all easily blocked by the desperate assassin, who now proves to be a mere diversion for his cowardly master to run off. He simply cannot risk failing any more than he already has, even though he has blocked a greatly weakened version of his last attack. Verdun now thinks that if he were to go too far now, he might just end up killing the very guy, and he does not want to lose his valuable chance of finally obtaining some information. Right now, he is in a serious pinch. He now has to somehow capture without actually killing his target. The desperate assassin now goes on to unleash his sharp sword against the brave vice captain, who is able to defend himself quite capably. Jason now instructs Verdun that he will be able to handle things in here, thus allowing the powerful mage to push past him and directly chase after the professor. Without even wasting a single breath, this man literally just flies on ahead, looking like a freaking Dragon Ball Z character over here, making poor Jason regret ever helping him out, because the bro did not even bother to say thank you and just simply left. Despite now bursting forth with an incredible amount of speed, Verdun just simply cannot seem to find the fleeing professor anywhere. Only a little bit of time has actually passed, so it does not make any logical sense for him to have escaped so far away. Suddenly, he is startled by a disgustingly strong and foul stench. It is the unmistakable stench of freshly rotting corpses. The powerful mage now confronts the evil professor at long last, who now appears to be more confident and truly sinister than ever before. He clearly knew that his lowly subordinate would surely fail to stop the crazy mage, but he is genuinely glad that Verdun came here anyway, because he has been dying to show the entire world his magnificent new creation. In the giant, imposing cage that is directly behind him rests an entire army of torn-mouthed creatures, the Jesters. The powerful mage now finally comes to terms with the dire situation, and he realizes that this truly insane professor has created entire hordes of these vile monsters, all at once. The name Jester appears to be a cruel mockery of the professor's true intent. He proudly claims his vile creations to be his own personal evolutions. However, these creatures are all still considered to be mere failures. They're not yet fully and properly perfected. They do not yet meet the high standard that he is aiming to eventually reach. And yet, he still thinks that they will be more than enough to stop just one single mage. So, he goes completely crazy and frees them all from their confining cage, sending a massive group of gigantic orcs and goblins directly in his way. With all of the creatures now fast approaching him, our mage realizes that he will now have to deal with all of these guys all through the night, if he simply tries to beat them all one by one. So, he instead goes for the much smarter and more efficient approach. By combining his powerful water and thunder magic, he invokes his dual casting ability once again, and unleashes his thunder wave as a devastatingly eruptive spell. This powerful spell first casts a crashing wave of pure water, and then pairs it with powerful and deadly thunderbolts, practically clearing out all of the enemies on a truly large scale. It even manages to catch the fleeing professor and brings him down, causing him to loudly express his immense annoyance. Having now observed his immense abilities so personally, the professor is now having his "oh shit, I am completely Ed moment, because this is certainly not an ordinary third-tier mage, from the precise way that he is now controlling his immense powers. This guy now appears to be a powerful fourth-tier magician of the absolute highest caliber. He is literally destroying all of the various mutations without much apparent trouble, having spent many long decades meticulously researching and crafting these monstrous and terrifying psychopaths. It is truly absurd that everything is now about to come to an end in a very short span of just a few minutes. In a last-ditch desperate attempt to try and save his own life. He quickly taps open a secret hidden door and quickly enters the very room where his ultimate and final specimen is now being kept, inside of a large, fluid-filled chamber. This terrible creature is the professor's finest creation, a true masterpiece that terrifies me the more and more that I look at. Bro has got an hourglass-like body that most girls would surely die for. I do have to wonder what his workout routine even is. Verdun very quickly catches up to the now cowardly professor, who simply cannot believe that the powerful mage has annihilated all of his precious test subjects so very fast. Our boy very casually admits that he has now burned them all, so there's now no way for him to possibly run away. The professor finds this entire situation to be utterly ridiculous. Even though he had deemed them all to be his failed test subjects, they were all still extremely powerful in large numbers. Just one single mage should not have been enough to kill them all, and certainly not so very quickly. With this one accomplishment alone, he is now dead certain that Verdun is of the 4th tier caliber for any mage. And speaking of our boy, he is now deeply intrigued by the strange sight of a new creature that is currently being preserved in the nearby chamber. The professor's visible nervousness is quickly replaced by his own immense pride. He has never been more proud of a single creation before now. This terrifying creature is now dubbed Gluttony, the very symbol of their entire group and their twisted, evil ideology. It is the ultimate life form, one that is designed to devour everything in its sight in order to become more and more powerful. Verdun gets intense chills when he hears that. This very creature is supposed to be the future of all of humanity. He cannot risk things to get any more out of his control, and he swiftly slices off the professor's remaining arm. Finally, a true protagonist who actually tries to eliminate a potential threat before it can awake. Even then, it is truly unfortunate for him, because despite his own wailing and pain screams, the professor had already managed to press the button before his other arm was cut off. Lo and behold, the fearsome abomination that is now known as Gluttony. Man, if this truly terrifying creature is now supposed to represent humanity's entire future, then you can sign me the heck out right now. Verdun finally realizes the professor's evil plan, who is now laughing out loud, victoriously. He points out that the powerful mage's immense mana reserves will now surely be the end of him, because to Gluttony, he is now staring at a 5-star, all-you-can-eat meal full of pure mana. Over here, the creature uniquely and eerily displays a strange capacity to now speak, and it now shares its immense hunger with him. Verdun is completely caught off guard as Gluttony now spasms wildly out of control, pulsating with a strange and chaotic energy. The now salivating monster has already completely locked its primary target down and is now aspiring to eat the delicious-looking meal. Is this monster using Riz? I know that I said Verdun is just like Gojo, but damn, even the monsters out here now seem to want his powerful staff. In all seriousness, when Gluttony had unleashed a powerful wave of pure energy, it had enhanced its own body quite immensely, and in a very short span of just a few seconds, this powerful creature is now already channeling incredible new abilities that normally surpass many long years of a human's intense training. The very fact that an artificial being can now use such incredible powers is far beyond it. And not just that, but Gluttony is now literally going completely and utterly ballistic and is only targeting the very weakest parts of our boy's powerful defensive barrier, exposing every single opening that is imaginable. It is now no surprise at all that the evil professor holds this particular creature as his absolute finest and most perfect creation. And admittedly, even Verdun now finds the results of his research to be quite interesting. At the very same time, he is not about to be catching any of the fraud allegations anytime soon. So, when Gluttony now runs up screaming wildly at him yet again, our boy just simply bitch slaps him, giving him a harsh reality check with his powerful staff and shoving him directly into the nearest wall. And remember, folks, it may be the single proudest day of the evil professor's entire life, after many long decades of his tireless research. But it is still just another simple Tuesday for our powerful boy, who declares the fearsome creature to be much weaker than him.